anyone in the audience wishing to address the board that is not on today's agenda, you may address the board for 2 minutes. Seeing no one come forward, the chair will close public comment. Can we have roll call, please?
Thank you. Chair Miller,
Here.
Vice Chair James,
Here.
Board Member Richards,
Here.
Board Member Motisha,
Here.
Board Member Farrell,
Here.
and Board Member Sweeney,
Here.
and Board Member Ziegler is absent.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to the approval of the single-family design board minutes for January 21st, 2020. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Did you get that? Okay, let's go through the agenda. So, all right, we have 301. Okay, that's. Let me get the right one. 2215 White Avenue. (1208) Los Alturas Road. So we only had 2 items. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Ayes have it. Thank you. Approval for the consent calendar for January 27th. Joy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The consent calendar for January 27th is as follows. Item A, 1795 Calle Poniente. This project received final approval as submitted. Item B, 1762 Calle Cerro. This project received project design approval with neighborhood preservation, hillside design, and slope lot findings with comments. Items A and B were reviewed by Chair Miller and Vice Chair James.
Thank you. So do I have a motion to?
I make that motion.
I second it.
Get that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Go to consent calendar for January 27th, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The consent calendar for February 3rd is as follows. Item A, 305 East Islay. This project received project design and final approval with neighborhood preservation, hillside design, and slope lot findings met. Item B, 1601 Calle Cañon. This project was continued indefinitely with the comment to revise the landscape plan to indicate the location of the proposed plants. Item A and B were reviewed by Chair Miller and Vice Chair James.
Thank you. Okay. Hearing any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Ayes carried. Thank you. Do we have any announcements or continuances or withdrawals or appeals, Erica?
No announcements today.
All right, thank you. Do we have any subcommittee reports? Anything updated we need to share or talk about? Nothing at this time? Okay.
Next meeting, we'll have
You'll have okay.
an update on the awards subcommittee.
I just want to quickly say that I was at the AIA board meeting last Monday, Friday. The guest speaker was Deborah Schwartz, and she's was an outspoken advocate, liaison for the housing program, and she kind of went quickly over the new laws that have been passed since January regarding the housing. And a couple points, and I think Fred can follow up, is one of the things that stood out for me was one of the requirements is that any particular project that goes before any type of board, the limit is 5. They can't go anywhere past 5. So if they have to go before it.
Review sessions.
Yeah. So they have a limit of 5, and if after that, then they have to go forward after that. There was a lot of other things that were talked about that were, the other thing is the elimination of the requirement that you have to be an owner at your residence at the same time for the ADU. That law passed as well. And there were several other items that were brought up too that I can't remember at the moment. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts or I know.
Well, the 5 meetings are all public meetings, so that could be a combination of review boards, planning commission, in our case, the tree subcommittee, creeks committee, the projects have to go, so any project would come under that purview. For our purposes, for our board, we won't be touched by any of that in theory because it's all has to do with multifamily housing. So we wouldn't be subject to some of those rules. With regards to accessory dwelling units, yeah, the major one among several changes that occurred January 1st is that you no longer have to be a resident of the main property. So you can own a property and don't have to live there. And they can have up to 2 ADU units on any property. And the last time I talked to staff, there's 13,000 parcels in the city of Santa Barbara that would be allowed to utilize that law. So, and those basically have no review by any review board, and specifically our review board, unless they want to defer from the objective standards that are in place and that are reviewed by staff.
It's quite comprehensive, I have to say. So something very important for people to really look into if they're interested in seeing the laws have been passed. So I'm going to go on. I think we're ready to go to our next project, 301 Mohawk Road. Are you here?
Erica, is this, it was sitting out here, is this it? Or is this it?
This is a continued item for concept review. No final appealable action will be taken at this hearing. Project requires neighborhood preservation findings. Project was last reviewed April 2nd, 2019. Do we have minutes, Lisa?
I will read the minutes.
Thank you.
The board gave the project positive comments with the instruction to study the window treatments, study the mass and amount of glass used on the windows. 4, consider adding wood treatment to soften the glare from the glass. 5, provide the lighting on both the building and the landscaping and show how the nighttime lantern effect would be handled from both the lighting and the glass. 6, show the proposed colors on the plan. 7, provide a landscape plan, especially with plans for screening the pool. 8, consider reconfiguring the orientation of the pool. 9, return with info on stormwater management. 10, consider larger overhangs on the building on the southern side. And 11, provide building sections.
Thank you. So could you show us how you address those items?
Hi,
Hi. And introduce yourself too, please.
I'm Jacob Nixto with Beckens and Nixto Architects.
Jessica Harlan with Barefoot Design.
And I will kind of walk you through how we went through those couple points. I may mix them up a little bit since
Okay.
we're talking about the site plan. But the first, I guess the first item was to provide a landscape plan.
Yeah.
To have Jessica here.
Okay.
I'll let her get into the specifics a little bit.
Make sure you're on.
Oh, there we go.
The little green light has to be on.
I'll let her get into the specifics, but in general, we were looking at screening and noise prevention. So there's a current 14-foot hedge about here on the rear of the property. Let's see. Can be seen there, and looking in the back. And so our proposal is to extend that out from its location here this way to the edge, and then around the corner as well, since this is kind of the only backyard, private rear yard area we have. The board recommended last time, and we did go through the process of discussing with the neighbors the official exemption to get a hedge height up to 14 feet above the 8 foot that's otherwise normally allowed. And both of the adjacent neighbors here were very much in support of that. So we do have that as part of our proposal. Additionally, another exception element would be a taller wall. And so for this area surrounding kind of the rear yard, we're proposing a 6-foot high wall, proposing it as a concrete wall to mitigate some of the sound concerns from the neighbors. That would be coming from this as the private yard area. I'll let Jessica go into a little bit more detail when we get to hers, but one of the next comment relevant here was consider reconfiguring the orientation of the pool. We've done that. You may or may not recall the pool was previously located kind of here, which did break up the private usable space a little bit, so we've pushed it over to where the setbacks allow in this corner to allow for kind of usable space, and then the pool as the backdrop. In terms of stormwater management, believe it or not, this footprint is so small that we are technically only under a Tier 2 stormwater plan. We're not on a hillside design. So we'll be looking at using disconnected downspouts. And we also have kind of a proposed system of rainwater catchment that's better shown on Jessica's plans as well. It's flow spread there. Proposed colors, comment 6. We did mark them here, our preliminary thoughts on colors. Here was kind of our basic plan, really a neutral, kind of warmer neutrals, less than cooler neutrals. There is more wood elements. We'll get to that in a little bit. But we have plaster walls, we have some roof elements, and then we have steel or metal, darker anodized bronze elements.
Okay.
So one of the next comments is in discussion to lighting. So we're showing all the lighting both on the residence and in the yard will be downlight, night sky compliant. The architectural lighting is shown here. The landscape lighting. And then we do show where those lighting elements are proposed. We have wall lights kind of at exterior doors as required by code. And then we do have some down lights in the ceiling where we have covered patio, which would just be recessed coming down. Comment number 10 was consider larger overhangs on the building's south side. We've made the overhang extend as far as we're allowed to. It's, by code, can go 3 feet, I believe, into the setback. We have extended the overhang to the west a little bit, or as you may recall, we're very tight on this lot, a corner lot. So we've gone off to the west a little bit. We have added some shade fins on different elements, which also helped soften the massing a little bit as well. Not a lot of significant change to what we proposed in terms of the floor plan. We're really constrained by setbacks on all 4 sides of this one. So.
Now that reminds me, one of the other laws they passed was a 6-foot setback is now a 4-foot setback for ADUs. So go on. You reminded me of that.
Okay, so on the elevations, one of the big overarching comments was to study the mass, to add wood to soften, and to look at the window treatments. So previously, it was primarily a kind of plaster and glass material palette with wood accents, wood screens. We've gone ahead and kind of taken some of the wood massing pieces themselves and proposed wood siding on that. So it's less of a full concrete or full plaster look. We also did some significant studies on the glazing because there is kind of numerous glazing. Let's see if I can pull these out here. And so this would be a Cardinal 272, which is kind of like a clear glass. This is a low E glass here, and then this would be a dark gray tinted low E. And so we're proposing going with something like this for the glazing that would cut down on the amount of light and the amount of glare. So this was really to show kind of the difference between how much light can be transmitted between these two. I don't want to, but a dark gray tint to the glass to help cut down on the lantern effect.
Now, are those
No.
using all? Are you using all three types of those glass?
No, I'm sorry. This would be the glass that we proposed. This was
Okay.
just shown for comparison.
Got it.
No, no.
Which one? The dark one.
Dark one.
All
Sorry, I
right,
can't
thank
see you.
Yeah, the massing itself is somewhat constrained by the solar access line. So really, we have,
Okay.
you can see on the east and you can see on the sections.
Yeah.
We explored the idea with the planning staff about getting a modification for that, and they were not, that was the one thing that they were not willing to support. They did say that they would consider allowing us a modification to push the house forward in the setback, but that was less desirable for many reasons, mainly because there's not, you'd need to push it pretty far forward to get usable space behind the house. And given the 14-foot hedge and where we're at now, it seemed just appropriate to stick with that, the solar access line, and make it work. And so what we're left with doing there is, as we go into the sections, we've got 8-foot plate heights on the lower level, even a little bit less in the garage in order to make the stormwater work. An 8-foot plate in most of the second floor, a 7/6 plate in the master bath to get ourselves down underneath that line. The trade-off is we are proposing a little bit higher space in the living room. Given that, you know, our footprint is constrained, that would help the house to not feel tiny all the way around. So most of the rooms are your standard 8-foot plate height, but the living room is the one space where communal space to get it a little bit larger. We've gone higher. Comment 11 was provide building sections. Here's our rough draft.
Okay.
And then let's turn it over to Jessica.
So this is our lighting plan. Everything's, as you can see in the fixture kind of cuts. We're having a downward-facing little wall wash that's within these the walls to give some just kind of inward-facing lighting. And then primarily it's just path lights to make safe path of travel around the property, with the exception that we do at the entry, just kind of on either side of this main entry and two of the trees, just for street presence, have a couple little moonlights coming out of the trees. And that's more or less it, other than a little, the little stair light too, which is just the same wall wash coming out. Trying to keep it simple and just have safe path of travel downward facing. The landscape plan, we're trying to go kind of beachy with a zen character per the client's request. As Jake noted, we have a 6-foot wall that comes through the entry to create this private zone in combination with the 14-foot hedge. And then at this entry, it drops down to 3'6" for the remainder, to kind of give you the same feeling as the first image, with the layered concrete walls with ornamental grasses and succulents in the foreground. Species-wise, we're proposing Acacia stenophila at the front entry to help buffer and screen the massing of the building. And again, it's an evergreen tree. It's not going to get huge, but it will provide a nice filter effect from the neighboring houses and street. As you can see in the elevation, this is generally the max height of the acacia, and there is also a reference photo down at the bottom to show what this tree looks like. Interior of the wall, it's going a little more kind of zen. The client really has a strong theme in mind, and so we're trying to create this kind of journey through the landscape using acacia cousinet, some pittosporum golf balls, and Cislaria to have this really kind of interesting palette that has different forms and shapes but is still simplistic. There is a lawn in the back, but it's the UC Verde buffalo grass, and that's to just create usable space around the pool. Jake briefly mentioned our kind of rainwater cistern that we're having on site. We're going to be taking the downspouts, much like this photo here, and bringing them into concrete edged kind of formwork that then is actually porous at the bottom. So in rainy seasons, it gathers and lets infiltration happen. But the rest of the time, it kind of looks like a dry creek bed with some Mexican river pebble at the base. And that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. So that concludes your presentation?
Yes.
Okay. So, did we get any emails or comments?
No, Mr. Chair.
Does anyone out in the audience wish to speak about this project? Have you filled out a ticket? You could come up and speak. You have 2 minutes, and please fill out one of those yellow slips. And then give it to the secretary. You can speak first if you'd like, and then go ahead and just speak your name clearly in the microphone, and you have 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and where you live too.
So my name's Luis Esparza. I'm the neighbor at 309 Mohawk, the house right next door on Mohawk Road.
Okay.
And I had previously, when this project was first before the board, I had previously emailed the board just saying, we don't have any objection. He could do. I'm a big fan of private property rights and whatnot. I took a closer look at it, and I appreciated the board's comments to take our concerns into consideration that would arise from the proximity of our structures. I recently signed off on the hedge exception, and I just think the hedge is key. I would also like to know if maybe even the wall could be higher, because that hedge is not the fullest. It doesn't really provide much buffering in terms of light, noise, and whatnot. And then also, if our windows on our structure can be taken into consideration, and I know that they mentioned going with the darker glaze on the windows, frosting or something could maybe also be something that creates more buffering. Other than that, it's really dark at night there, and I really appreciated the board's concerns about the lighting at the first meeting. But after sunset, it's any light there at all really shines. But other than all, I'm not indicating any opposition. I just would like those things to be taken into account. The hedge is key, if the wall could be raised, and the potential light bulb effect at nighttime.
So you're talking about the walls where your property adjoins?
Yeah, it's basic. It's
the top line?
It's the top line, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Okay, I don't see anyone. I'm going to bring it back to the board. Does anyone have questions? Fred, do you have questions?
Yes. This one is, first one for staff. If they want to do the 14-foot hedge, is that an action we have to make? Or is that a staff action?
That's administrative approval through staff because they're in the coastal zone for the hedge.
And as I understand it, the wall height is limited to 8 feet on all properties, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so they can't really go higher than 8 feet.
Correct. I'd have to look into
Okay.
an exception.
And then I have other questions of the applicant. You want me to proceed?
Yes, please. If
Okay.
there are questions, yes.
On the overhangs that you show on the, take that, put that under the screen,
Or what sheet?
sheet A3. I wanted to show this sheet because I've drawn scale people in here, and that helps people understand what you're looking at. Helps people understand what you're looking at. So
Oh, I see.
on the section of the overhangs, have you done a structural section yet? Right now, those appear to be 12 inches in depth, or height, rather, the fascia boards on the roof overhangs.
This here?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Are those 12 inches?
We'd ideally be a little less. It may,
Have you worked out a structural section to see if you could actually accomplish that?
what we would typically do would have this come up to be a little bit higher on the inside and have it be a low slope roof and taper down to a thinner profile at the edge.
Okay.
No, we have not done that structural exercise.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested in seeing that. The dark tinted glass that you shared with us, do we have any technical information that tells us what that would look like at night with light from the inside of the house?
I don't have anything here. I can,
Okay. And then on the southwest corner, I know you don't have a detail yet, but you have a wood screen shown on the south side, I think it is. Maybe it's the west side right there. And then you have basically clear glass or glass elements to the other corner. So at some point, I'm assuming that wood screen sits in front of the glass. So I'm interested to see what the meeting point is at the corner, because right now, the way it's drawn, there's virtually no real corner element to speak of. So
You're referring to
it
right
just
here?
didn't seal, yeah. Yeah, where those two glass elements meet. And then the 6-foot wall in the front on the other street side, I penciled it in there on the south elevation. Yeah, right. So that's 6 feet high, more or less, from the finished grade. So that fence is wood or stucco, or maybe I missed that?
Concrete.
Concrete.
Yeah.
Concrete, and is it form-based concrete, or is it a trowel finish, or what are you doing?
Trowel smooth finish.
Trowel smooth finish, okay. And then the acacia trees that you show in the front. And this is a question to my landscape colleagues on the board. From the photograph, they appear to be a thin kind of tree that you see through. Is that how I'm reading that? And then it shows a sculpture on the corner of the lot. Is that an existing sculpture or a sculpture to be purchased yet?
To be purchased, it's an opportunity. He's interested in curating art.
Oh, make sure you're,
He's interested in curating art, so it's an opportunity that he's yet to curate.
Okay, so it's not a piece he has in place yet?
No.
Okay. All right, those are most of my questions. Thank you.
thank you. Jan, do you have any questions? Joe? Lisa?
Nope.
Barbara? Okay. Let's see if I have a couple. Well, I wrote garden concrete wall, but I don't know what my question was. Oh, how high is the existing height of the wall on the adjacent property, the property line wall?
I believe it's shown here. It's about 4 or 5 feet.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
The CMU wall that's, I guess you can kind of see glimpses of it at the edge, and can't really see it through there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right, thank you. We'll go to comments. Who has comments? Anyone have comments? Fred, do you have comments?
Yeah, I know that we asked the applicant the previous session to study the glass, the amount of glass, et cetera, and they've shown us the use of a wood screen on a portion of the glass. But one of the things that strikes me about this overall design, given its site location, it's going to be overbearing in this neighborhood. And one of my concerns is we approved a home 3 years ago about a block over, big sweeping roof element, overhangs, very contemporary. And there are a few houses like that. There's one on Camino de la Luz, I think that's the street, down by the ocean, down by the bluff. But in most instances, those homes have sat back from the street. Even the one that we approved a couple of years ago sit back from the street. And there was an opportunity to build a berm and a hedge element and landscape elements and fences around that home, et cetera. My sense is this home is just going to be, it's right up on top of the street. And so this amount of glazing in the house, and given where it is, it just bothers me. This is the kind of contemporary design one would like to see on a fairly decent size piece of property. This is if you go to the trade magazines, Architectural Record, et cetera, these are the ones that get photographed, and they're in Connecticut. They sit on a 2-acre piece of grass overlooking some river, et cetera. But this house is very contemporary, and I don't have anything against the contemporary approach. It's just the amount of glass sitting up on the street is considerable. And so I'm concerned that it's not compatible with the neighborhood. One of the things that one learns when you look at architecture and you deal with what people see and view out of windows brings me back to studies the Japanese have always embraced, and that's this idea of framing views, where they don't come in with huge expanses of glass just because they have the ability to see 360 degrees. And they tend to concentrate on framing those views. So it has a lot to do with the proportions and openings of window fenestration. And I think that this project could use a little bit of that sensitivity given its location and its adjacency in the neighborhood. So it just bothers me. My sense is we're going to get criticized for approving this kind of house on that corner. But others may not feel the same way I do.
Well, I was out there and drove around and walked it. And I mean, my notes from the other day was that it's a very crowded, tight lot. And to be putting that big of a house right there, because not only is it close to one street, but it's close to 2 streets because it's on the corner. So it's going to be very overpowering, I think, for this lot.
Okay.
I'll pass. I'll pass.
Art, you
I'll
pass?
pass. Yeah.
Lisa?
I think I find the house mostly approvable. I'm also concerned about a lot of reflective surface. I do think the landscape plan is going to provide some relief with the column of trees in the front, and maybe even some more columnar elements along the masses of concrete might help the situation.
Robert?
I agree. I think that this house fits into the context of the neighborhood. I mean, with the other house that you're describing, it's kind of along the same lines with the contemporary nature. I find the landscape is really elegant, and I appreciate, I think the Acacia stenophila could be effective at kind of knocking back some of the appearance of this glass. Maybe it might be worth looking at incorporating another one in the corner somehow, but I haven't visited there, so I'm not sure how large this existing tree is, but I think the landscape is elegant, and I think the house will look neat in the neighborhood, and I think it fits into the neighborhood, so I support it. I also appreciate the size of it. I understand it's a small lot, but it's not a massive structure relative to how somebody's going to live in it. So,
Joe, can I borrow the pictures? So, do you have a photograph of this house in here?
That's the gentleman who spoke, and that would be this house.
That
here.
house there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And,
the second story portion is here.
and your house is going right here, right?
Yeah, that is the existing house at the property right now.
And do you have a picture of this house?
I do not.
No. Okay. So where is this house? That one.
Let's see if I do have. These houses are kind of.
Now, do you have another? Yeah, like a rural map.
Yeah.
Right.
So in talking about neighborhoods,
Perfect.
there were a few. We brought these up last time, so I brought
Sure.
where they were, but
Yeah.
other contemporary examples in this neighborhood. It's about a quarter mile, as alluded to in the design guidelines. But these four houses, here would be our proposed project. This is 147 Palisades here. This is 2102 Edgewater here. This is 129 Oliver here. And then 1930 El Camino de la Luz is down this street here.
Okay. Well, kind of want to. My feelings on the matter, just kind of following up with Fred. The house itself is a beautiful contemporary home, but I think part of the purview of this board is how it fits into the fabric of the adjacent neighbors, and so that there's an even flow. So I'm a little uncomfortable as to the style of this house kind of creates an even flow. That doesn't mean that the contemporary is not, is not a bad design. And the concrete walls for the landscaping, those are very, I don't know. Robert seems to feel comfortable from the neighborhood that would work. I guess the primary concern would be the glazing, all the glass that's being shown. I also feel like it's always nice to kind of pick pieces from the existing surrounding neighborhoods and bring them into this introduced home to kind of show that it's part of the neighborhood. And I don't feel there's not a lot of sympathy to the design of this house to the existing neighborhood. And I think that's kind of what we're trying to promote and use the architect designer's creative energies in terms of doing that. So that's kind of how I feel about it. And I guess I'd go back to what Fred said about all the glazing. It's probably somehow that needs to be cut back a little bit.
wasn't a considerable amount of the glass covered in like a wood slatting? Is that part of one of the elements that kind of knock back some of it?
Yeah, the idea was that some of the glazing that would be more prominent, like that facing the street, had a wood screen, and then this front corner where where it's more like a front yard would have a wood screen, but that the glazing elements that are kind of pulled back or facing the private yard would not have the wood screen, so that it felt like this smaller footprint would open up to that yard and not be cut off from that space. So that was
I was just
part of
thinking,
the intention, yes.
probably one of the weaknesses, for me anyway, is when I look at the elevations. Where's the exterior elevation? They're just like mechanical elevations. They don't really have any feel to them. It's like, here it is, and I have no idea how it, and it's kind of like you want to seduce us into showing you how wonderful this house is in this neighborhood. And this really doesn't do that. It kind of informs you how to build the house, but I don't really see, like, Robert mentions the wood framing, it's like, oh, okay, but it doesn't really clearly explain it to the viewer that that's what it's for. I mean, this looks like a huge glass with weird lines in it. So I guess
Maybe rendering it with like the
Yeah.
actual appearance of how
Something
it would
like that.
look might be helpful to
would,
understand
yeah,
it.
because it's kind of missing character in that respect. So,
I was thinking the exact same thing. I have a hard time even understanding how this house is going to look. I can't, it just
Yeah.
is, I just can't see it because it's not in a drawing, and
No,
I'm not
it's
an
like-
architect.
It
So.
adds the people to put scale to it, which is kind of a critical component. A lot of times, growies are nice, but also a rendered look would be really helpful, I think, in terms of trying to communicate to us the how this would work. And also, if you could do a rendering looking at the adjacent home, seeing how they kind of flow as well, I think that would be very helpful too.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I could add a couple of things. One is, as you know, we're not to guarantee anybody's view from any single window, either the applicant's project or the neighbor's. And you'll notice I penciled in people on the north, I think that's the north elevation,
Yeah.
from those windows. So the second story window is 5 feet from the finished floor, so you can see where a 6-foot person, they have to go right up to the window to be able to see out of it.
Yeah.
But on the first floor, the 5 feet is measured from the finished grade rather than the finished floor, so it turns out it's only 4 feet to the sill, based on just scaling the drawing. So, that's just a thing to consider in terms of the view. And I thought that at our last review, we did count for those window locations and the northerly neighbors' locations, and as I recall, there wasn't a huge window-to-window conflict, but I can't be sure about that.
Right.
The other part of the rendering issue is, given the closeness of this house, and it's not to say that the house is, the size, bulk, and scale is probably appropriate to the lot size. It's where it's located on that corner, and its adjacency, the distance from the face of the house to the property line and to the street. And these properties don't have sidewalks and curbs. They basically end right into the paving. So rendering it with the wall in front and landscaping really tells a different story than those drawings share with us today. So I kind of agree with Jan that it's hard to understand and read what this thing's really going to look like. So that would be probably very helpful to really know what it's going to portray.
So I guess they're here for comments only. So if anyone cares to make a motion?
I will make a motion. The board would like to give this project the following comments. That we appreciate that you have worked with the neighbors to come to an agreement to grow the hedge to 14 feet. And that you have relocated the swimming pool to the west side of the property. We appreciate that the stormwater will be dealt with in a cistern collection system, and that you have shown both indoor and outdoor lighting that is sensitive to the night sky compliant rules. Let's see, that you've increased the roof overhang on the west side of the building. We would like you to consider possibly less glazing, and on the wall faces that have the large wood slat treatment, possibly more tall landscaping to break that up, or some way of rendering your drawing to show more depth and more accurately what the building will look like. We would also like you to show the adjacent homes, possibly, did you want a street?
Sort of like a 3D rendering, sort of a clear picture of how the adjacent homes fit in with the new home.
Let's see. I think that is it, and we would like you to return to us. Oh, and we feel, excuse me, comments on the landscape plan. We feel the landscape plan is very appropriate for the neighborhood and the specific building. And we would like to consider even another possible Australian willow for the corner. And Jessica can study that a little bit.
All right, thank you. So do I have a second of the motion for the motion?
Second?
Any discussion, additions, changes? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions, ayes have it. So we'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Is that full board? Sure. Yes. Lots of paper.
The Weymouth homes are so much better down by the beach.
There's the, see you later. Okay. So our next project is 3333 Braemar Drive. Come forward, please. Okay, this is a continued item for concept review. There's no final appealable action will be taken at this hearing. The project requires a review from the staff hearing officer for a modification to allow the proposed garage to exceed the maximum allowed square footage of 750 square feet. Project requires neighborhood preservation findings. Project was last reviewed on July 8th, 2019. Lisa, do we have minutes?
We do.
Thank you.
The minutes from our last meeting asked that the applicant provide building sections showing plate heights, details, and materials. Number 2, show the location of the existing trees. 3, show the solar panel locations. 4, show how the existing hedge and fence will be treated. And 5, provide lighting in compliance with Santa Barbara's outdoor lighting ordinance.
Thank you. So if you could introduce yourselves and show us where you've addressed those minute notes.
My name is Gil Berry. I'm the project architect.
Again.
Aaron Carroll, landscape architect.
Lonnie Collins, one of the owners, and Tim is over here.
Great. All right, thank you. So could you show us what you've done?
In the previous design, since the owner's cars were only 16 feet long, I made the 4-car garage 20 feet outside diameter. Subsequent to our last meeting, I met with transportation staff, and they said that they would not approve a garage with a 20-foot OD. They want us to have 20 feet inside diameter like we had for 30 years. And I tried to make the argument that our cars are only 16 feet long, and I lost that argument. So therefore, to have our 4-car garage, we can't comply with the 750 square feet size, so we need to be 805 square feet, which is a 7% increase. And of note, since we're in the coastal zone, we're under Title 28. And as you all know, the new zoning ordinance, Title 30, when you have a 1 1/4 acre lot like this, you're allowed to have a garage being like 1,700 or 1,200 square feet. So if, 2 years from now, we wouldn't need a mod. But we're coming back for 2 reasons. One is we're going for modification, and they need comments, hopefully favorable, that you could support the garage being bigger than 750 square feet. And then also, in the last 6 months, I've redesigned the house. It's the same size, and it's just slightly different. It's maybe 90% the same, but it's the same style. So it's just minor changes. So as long as we're here anyway for the modification comments, it's a good opportunity for you to look at the design.
Okay.
My recollection is you liked it before. It hasn't really changed much. Hopefully,
All right.
you'll still feel similar.
Well, show us, explain your drawings here. Enlighten us.
Okay. This is the existing site plan, and on it I showed all the existing fences and hedges. And as the architect, I'm handling the house and garage, and our highly qualified landscape architect will do the landscaping and for doing anything changes to like hedges or fences. Most of the hedges and fences belong to the owner, to the neighbors. So I'm not proposing any changes, but I'm just showing what's here. I don't know if you even want to go into the fences. They're pretty.
I can get into the
relevant.
fences and hedges when we get to the landscape.
Should I go ahead and?
Sure, yes, please. I kind of want to know, you said you've made changes, so, kind of underline or underscore where you've made the changes so we're kind of aware of what's going on.
Yes, the garage is 8 inches wider. I showed the solar panels here.
Okay.
And the 2-story element is smaller. The overall size is the same. We're like about 83%. Staff said 85%, so call it 85% of the FAR.
Okay.
And I can't recall exactly what the changes are because I probably made 50 changes, but most were minor. Moving a door a foot, moving a window a foot, making a room 6 inches bigger, making some of the room 6 inches smaller, making a window 6 inches bigger. They were all quite minor, but the floor plan did change. So the key would probably be to look at the new floor plan, to look at the new design and see if it's acceptable. And then the style of the house is a green and green style.
Great.
And it has a low-pitched roof, which would be man-made slate shingles. The siding would be a wood shingle type siding. The low-pitched roof is 3 and 12. The rafters are all beams and they all stick out quite a bit. And the roof has a unique shape that every gable, there's like maybe 10 gables, they all have the exact same design where the center part I'm popping out. Instead of having one ridge beam, I'm having 2 ridge beams. So the center part of all my ridges pop out an extra foot. All the overhangs are 3 feet, but those ridges pop out an extra foot to be 4 feet. And like I said, it's basically a wood house.
Yeah.
And it's smaller than all the new houses. It's like 3,500 square feet. All the new houses in this neighborhood are all 5,000 square feet. So it's relatively modest compared to all these McMansions that you see. So it's not a McMansion, it's
Yes.
a nice house. But then the garage matches the house, green style, 3-foot overhang, 3 and 12 pitch. So that's basically it. Very similar, very similar.
Sections showing plate heights and details. Did you do that?
Yes. All of the house have a modest 8-foot plate height, except for the kitchen has a 10-foot plate height. The living room has a 12-foot plate height. So every other room is 8 feet. The second story is 8 feet under and 8 feet over, so it's only like 17 feet. So it's very low height building.
Sure. But did you actually draw the sections?
No, we're here for concept review. So
Okay.
I didn't actually draw the sections. So
Well,
in a
that's
couple of months,
true.
we'll be back with sections.
Okay.
But they're, the entire house has open beam ceilings.
Okay.
And like I said, the 12-foot plate is only the living room. 10-foot plate is only the kitchen.
Okay.
So that gives some breakup to the roof.
All right. You showed the existence of the existing trees, right? It says here. I'm just
Yes.
going through the minutes.
Yes, all the existing trees are shown.
So this one pounds. And did you provide lighting? It says here, provide lighting in compliance with the City of Santa Barbara outdoor lighting ordinance.
Yes, when I was here for concept, the understanding was the next time I came was going to be for preliminary. So all those comments were what I was supposed to bring back for preliminary. We're back again for concept only to get the comments for the modification. So our next preliminary application will have all those things you asked for,
Okay.
including lighting.
Okay. Aaron, show your.
please. There's actually 4. So yeah, before you today, I've got a hardscape plan, and I don't have a full-on planting plan yet, but I do have a plant list and images, so I'll pass that out. Oh. I'll give it to Robert. One of the more important items I'd like to get comments from the board today on is the semicircular driveway configuration.
Okay.
Staff is not supportive of that configuration due to parking concerns in the front yard setback. However, there are 3 other homes with that similar configuration in our neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
There, and I'm reading this upside down. Our property is there. This is our property.
Mm-hmm.
And our next door neighbor also has that configuration. So
Yeah, here too.
we'd appreciate comments on that. We do have a generous amount of landscaping between the street and this driveway.
Okay.
Getting into the hardscape, paver driveway, the semicircular driveway is proposed as brick. There's an entry loggia to the front door here. Decomposed granite pathways around the site. There's an existing fences here all the way around the property. And so our only new fencing would be to close off the side yards. And also we're proposing a new vehicular gate back here to close off this area.
Okay.
This is a recirculating stream with a pond.
Cool.
So that's normally wet from there to there, but this would be a dry stream over here. So it'd be a high point in here, and that would handle some of the drainage coming down there. The pool and pool fencing would stay. We're not proposing to remove any trees, existing trees, except for one giant bird of paradise, which we'll be digging up and relocating. This is their main outdoor patio here, outdoor kitchen. But all of this is way far from the public right of way. So, and then back here is just a ranch road to get to the stables and corrals back there. The plant book with the images I separated by front yard, which is this area. And that would be, there's a lot of existing native plants out there, so we'd be going with that theme, which is, mostly all native in the front yard. And as we move towards the back, there's existing king palms and plumeria, and it's got a tropical vibe to it. So completely different theme along the stream. More subtropical, more lush plantings through there. And towards the back, there's an existing citrus orchard. And that would be pretty simple meadow plantings and carapia lawn throughout this whole area here.
Keys for scale.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of grasses back there along the perimeters. So 3 distinct gardens, and I'll bring a more final planting plan next time for that. You also have a veggie garden back there as well.
Great. All right. That's your presentation. Okay. Do anyone in the audience wishing to speak about this property? Did we get any correspondence, emails?
No, Mr. Chair.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and board members. Michelle Bedard, Assistant Planner for the project. Just wanted to be here to listen to your comments mostly and make sure that you have made the comments if you feel it's ready to go through the staff hearing officer process. Just did want to comment on two things, excuse me. As the architect said, staff is supportive of the proposed oversized garage, given they are meeting all the other required setbacks, and if this were Title 30, which we do hope to be in place in coastal zone in a couple or few years, time uncertain, this size parcel would allow a total of 1,950 square feet total of accessory space. So it's just the limitation as far as being governed under Title 28, which still limits 750 square foot garage. On the second note, on the circular driveway, that is something staff does not typically support, as also said by the landscape architect. The intent of a driveway is to serve as your means of ingress and egress to your required parking, which is in this case their proposed garage. The circular driveway does not meet that intent for this project. It is just purely in front of the house. The concern is that also that would result in potential for parking and a required front setback, which staff does not typically support. So in this particular case, I would just recommend that the board make comments, include comments on the circular driveway to the staff hearing officer. We can make that determination at that time if the board finds it's aesthetically pleasable. Maybe there could be some consideration that we would allow it, although if it is allowed, staff would have to reevaluate whether or not it would require a second mod for parking and a front setback. And I don't know that we would be supportive of that, given that we're supporting an 805 square foot 4-car garage for the single family residence.
Okay, thank you, Michelle.
Can I ask her a question?
Sure.
So I have a question for you, Michelle. So that driveway, though, because the streets are pretty narrow in that area around Yankee Farm Road and things like that. Wouldn't that provide parking if you were having a party or for guests or something like that, though, which would be a positive thing?
It's a great comment. As staff, we typically decline to comment on that. Okay. We don't typically encourage parking for uses other than the primary residential required spaces.
Okay. Can I?
Also, on that note, I just wanted to throw in that the dimension of the width of the street is a Public Works transportation requirement. In some cases, there is remaining, what we call remaining public right-of-way over the property, and in some cases, they may, in the future, the Public Works Department may choose to expand the road width, but that would also not be a reason to support a circular driveway for parking and a setback.
Fred, please.
I'm going to reserve my comments about the circular driveway to comments for you, Michelle. But I do have a technical question. So, irregardless of our comments as to whether we feel that the circular driveway is appropriate or not appropriate, whatever, from what I hear you saying is our comments really don't count, that the transportation staff is going to make the final call. Is that the situation?
That's kind of my question, too.
Yes and no. So essentially, transportation staff typically reviews the ingress and egress to required parking, and they review, that's typically the driveway. This is a planning division call that this driveway promotes parking in a setback, and planning does not support parking in a setback.
Okay, I will respond to that during my comments.
All right, thank you, Fred. So we just went through questions, right? Are we okay? Well, we're bringing it to the board for questions, or we just completed? I just lost track. No, you finished your. So do we have any other questions?
Yeah, I have just to follow through. I think I heard correctly. So when the updated zoning ordinance comes into play in a couple of years or a year, whenever it is, the total square footage of accessory structures, which includes the garage, does that also include, would in this particular case include the square footage of the shed, the existing sheds, in the existing horse stable structure?
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. The accessory structures include all detached accessory structures that we count as square footage. That's accessory, so anything like a shed or a enclosed square footage in addition to a garage.
So that would add up to that total. I have questions of the applicant.
Okay, please go. Please.
The Bird of Paradise that you're talking about replanting, is that the one down here in this corner? You can look on that map.
No, it's actually over here on the south side of the house.
Okay. And then, oops,
Here's a pointer in case you need it.
trash cans. Do you have any feel at this point? I know you're early in the game, but typically trash cans end up by garages or whatever. Do you guys have any idea where you're going to put trash cans?
To be honest, I hadn't thought about it yet, but they will not be in the setback. The owners might be able to answer where they'd put their trash.
Okay, thank you. Just something to think about.
They're not in the setback, that much I do know, but where they're going to go here, I'm not sure. That's a good question.
Inside or outside?
Oh, they're outside.
So if they're outside, probably this side of the garage.
Over here.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Fred?
No, that's it.
Thank you. Jan, do you have any questions? Joe, question?
No.
You two have? Okay, let's see. Okay, Michelle answered that question for me. Okay, we'll go now to comments. Who has comments? Fred, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll follow up on the issue of the circular driveway. I understand why transportations, in many cases within the city of Santa Barbara, particularly in some of the neighborhoods where the lot sizes are smaller, they're more a traditional neighborhood configuration. I'm thinking particularly about the Upper East neighborhood. It's been around a long time, and there's a few existing circular driveways in that neighborhood have been there for years. I do know on a couple occasions there's been some new applications and transportation hasn't not allowed them. But one of the things I would encourage transportation and planning to maybe pay attention in this neighborhood, may not specifically be this site, but we had another project in here just 2 weeks ago. We had a room full of neighbors here who are going to be contacting Council Friedman because they're very upset that property owners aren't providing enough on-site parking to take care of parties, tours, whatever, because the roads are so narrow, they're unimproved on both sides. So in that particular case, we had a group of neighbors standing at that podium over there saying, Review Board, you need to make these people park their guest parking on their lot. And so I think that transportation and planning needs to look at the Bramer Ranch area very specifically and not just roll over to their traditional viewpoint about circular driveways. These neighbors were so upset that we tried to explain to them that we didn't have that kind of purview and that we encouraged them to see their city council person. And I know in talking to that council representative, that's actually happening. So I would suggest that planning and transportation get out in front of this thing first, because this is not an issue of, well, we always, just by custom, we don't allow circular driveways. I think they need to look at this neighborhood specifically and look at these size lots up there and deal with this, because this question is not going to go away. We've looked at 6 houses in the last year in this neighborhood, at least 6 that I can think of in this neighborhood, all asking for similar kinds of approaches because they're all sitting on 1.5, 2-acre lots. And they're in an area that used to be county roads, and the roads are only 20 feet in width, and there's no place to park. Everybody's parking in the cactus or in the weeds or whatever. So I don't think this is an issue that's going to go away just by denying this applicant a circular driveway.
Thank you, Fred.
Mr. Chair, just to follow up, I'd just like to say,
Please.
for staff's perspective, I thank you, and we will look into that. However, again, in this particular case, where the driveway is located in configuration to the driveway, or to the garage, that would also suffice providing ample parking for other parties or what have you, other uses, and that still doesn't necessitate a circular driveway. But again, I thank you for the comment, and we will look into that.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments? Lisa, please.
Yes, I really appreciate the style of the house that you created, and I think it will lend itself really well to the existing neighborhood, and look forward to see the more developed landscape plan. And yes, the parking issue is real, and I look forward to seeing some sort of movement on that too. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Robert?
I agree with the positive comments in regards to the style of the house, and landscape plan is nice as well. And in regards to the loop driveway, or however we want to describe it, I appreciate that you've taken the approach of doing like a ribbon driveway, because I think it kind of downplays it, and it's not like a sea of paving out there. So I think that's sensitive to the style of the house and the property, and it also serves as overflow parking. So I think that's a good way of accomplishing it. So I support it.
Mr. Chair, and just
Yes, Michelle.
one other comment too. In regards to the circular driveway, I would express the board to make the comments not specifically to the need for parking, but perhaps the aesthetics of the neighborhood.
Great, very good to know. Thank you. My only comments are kind of a follow-up to everyone that said so. I think it's a beautiful home. I love that look. I think you're very sensitive to it, very aware of that style of architecture. I do look forward to seeing your sections, and I hope we've given you enough security now that you can, continue on and giving us more complete drawings. As far as it's totally in the style and keeping of the house to have a type of turnaround driveway like that. So I think that would be a big plus. So those are my comments. Would someone like to?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Fred, please.
They're primarily here. We've already commented about the acceptance of the style of the house and the general approach in the first meeting.
Yes.
And they're primarily here today just to get comments on the garage.
Garage.
So I will focus my comments on the garage.
Very good. Yes.
I feel the garage approach is appropriate, that the scale, that the size, given the nature and the size of the lot that this garage will sit on, is aesthetically appropriate, that it's sufficiently far enough away from the property line to not have an impact. And I would encourage the applicant, before they go to the staff hearing officer, to indicate on the drawings where they're going to put the trash enclosure. Given the verbal description, sounds like it should be appropriate, but probably is an important element to include in the staff hearing officer's approval. I'll make that a motion.
Okay, and do you want to make any comment about the driveway?
And that we would look at the driveway layout and material and configuration, particularly the ability to have a median planting strip, as indicated on sheet L 1.1, is appropriate. And even though the amount of parking on the site is not under the purview of the Single-Family Design Board, the board would encourage planning staff and transportation staff to look at not only this property, but the entire Braemar Ranch area with regards to on-site parking. That's my motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Great. All those in favor, say aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Chair,
Yes, hold on.
Did we cover everything?
can we just include that you're continuing to the staff hearing officer?
And that it should continue the staff hearing officer with that motion or comment.
And we're, is that right? Did you, okay, is everything good?
We're going to have Mary repeat the motion to make sure that
All right,
it's
thank you.
sufficient.
So the motion is to continue indefinitely to the staff hearing officer with the following comments. The scale of the project is appropriate given the size of the lot and the project's distance away from the property line. Indicate on the drawings the location of the trash enclosure, the driveway layout, materials, and configuration. Particularly the planning strip is appropriate. The board encourages planning staff and transportation staff to look at this general area in regards to the on-site parking. And the motion was made by Sweeney and seconded by Farrell.
Mary, if I could, I didn't hear the word, the language regarding the building is to the garage only for the modification?
Okay.
Can you just clarify that, please?
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Chair, just clarify
Michelle.
that in your little handouts that you have that are laminated, there's specific language to the modification that we request that you include in the motion.
So please.
Oh, is that on the yellow sheets?
I thought we were here only for comments. Yes.
Oh, modifications down.
Thank you.
Item 8. Yeah, that the modification is aesthetically appropriate. I thought I had said that. The proposed modification does not pose consistency issues with design guidelines and required findings, and that the yard, lot, and floor area modification promotes an appearance of uniformity of development of this particular site with regards to the main proposed house structure.
Is that acceptable, Michelle? All right. All right. That was our motion. Did you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, I don't know if, as part of the owners, I just wanted to address the circular driveway. That front door is the wide door, and as owners, we kept after Gil to make sure that this house allows us to age in place. And so we can pull up by the front door, which is big and one level to enter. And so we can load and unload ourselves.
Excuse me. Can you come speak into the microphone if you...
Oh. Yeah, you're on record. We're being televised. I just wanted to make sure, but we got the gist of what you said, but yeah.
Okay, Tim Collins, one of the owners, and our goal as owners was for this home to be our last home, and that we would age in place, and that circular driveway takes us to the front door where it's all level footing and a wide door for us to come in and out.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
May I add one sentence?
Sure.
Okay. This neighborhood is immediately adjacent to Hope Ranch that also has large lots like this. And Hope Ranch, they've required for 20 years that everyone has to provide like on-site parking for like 8 cars. So when you have parties and things. So I just want to say these folks are right on.
Okay.
Because if it's applicable for Hope Ranch, why wouldn't it be applicable for this neighborhood or anybody? So
All right.
I just...
Got it. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes got it. See you later.
Well, it was interesting because at the last meeting,
Here you go. The plant list good?
Do you want to take this extra?
Are you good with the plant list over? Okay.
Okay, our next project is, we're a little late, 3354 Cliff Drive, if you'd like to come forward. Okay, this is a new item, so I'm going to read into the record. Proposal is for an interior remodel of 1,773 square feet of additions to an existing 2,370 square foot single unit residence with a detached 744 square foot 3-car garage. Project includes converting 452 square feet of non-habitable space to habitable space. The proposed total of 4,887 square feet of development is on a 70,184 square foot lot in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone, is 92% of the guideline maximum floor to lot area ratio. No appealable action will be taken. Project requires neighborhood preservation findings. So if you could introduce yourself and show us what you're doing.
Mark Mirando, agent for the owner on my right.
Ann Brigard, owner.
Hi, Mark.
Hi.
Show us
Chair
your
Miller.
stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Board members. Basically, we're with the addition and the detached three-car garage, we're at 92% of the FAR, which is a guideline. So you come in off of Cliff Drive, and there's a 6-foot fence, and then you come down, and there's another gate here that is automatic. And originally, we had converted this portion of the house to an ADU, and we pulled the permit, but then we were thinking, since she was going to do this big remodel, we decided to not do this and make it part of the house, and then maybe build an ADU later out here in the front somewhere. So basically, this is like a 2,340 square foot house, and we're gonna pretty much take off this portion right here and then straighten out the lines. And it's gonna be like San Ysidro style. White batten board with metal clad windows. This front porch comes out, it's covered, and because the views are all the views are out this way of the ocean. We put a little trellis out the front of it here too, as you can see on the orthogonal, but if you go to the floor plan, it's like a horse property, so the whole front of it has horses and corrals, and this area actually was converted to habitable space with that ADU permit, and it was signed off because in 2011 when she bought it, this little area was a violation that it had been converted, so she fixed the garage, had to get a mod for that and chop it off and do a bunch of stuff, and it got signed off, so this is actually legal square footage. And we're just coming off of this line here, and then off of this line here. And we're going to put in Eagle metal clad contemporary E-Series windows, and this is the floor plan. So the covered porch, you come in the front door. It's a great room. The area that was the ADU is going to be 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, and then you come down the hall. There's the master and then the 2 kids' rooms. And this is another flex space, probably an office. So it'll be a 9-foot plate. And as in the back bedroom, it actually steps up. So we're just going to step it up and keep the 8-foot plate to keep the plate the same. Where is that? Actually, it's upside down. Yeah.
8 foot, 9
This
foot.
bedroom, yeah, exactly. So we just stepped it up inside the house to go into that back area. And so it's just going to be white. It's going to have the same sills and the 4-inch trim around it as it does now. It'll be 2x-battens, 24-inch on center. The doors will be pretty much divided lights. The front door's right here. This is the light fixture. It meets Title 24 and dark sky compliant. There's going to be a fireplace in the living room. So on the roof plan, this will be K-style rails, and we're going to put another probably skylight right here in this little storage room on the back side. And this is the fireplace. So it's a pretty simple 1-story dwelling. It'll have a metal roof. I know it's called out as asphalt, but I made that mistake because we had asphalt earlier and I forgot to change it.
What type of metal? Standing metal or?
Standing seam,
Okay.
16. We can bring the color in next time and the details on it.
Thank you.
Do you have anything to add? Or?
No, I seem to cover it.
Do we have anyone in the audience that wishes to speak for the project? Thank you. Susan Strict, if you'd like to speak at the podium, you have 2 minutes to.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
My name is Susan Strick. I own the property. Thank you. My name is Susan Strick. I own the property adjacent to this property at 3408 Cliff Drive.
Okay.
Just to the west.
Correct.
The west, correct.
Yeah, right here.
Right. And I just wanted to say that I support this project. I've worked with Anne and Mark both in the past on other types of things, and I'm very confident in their work and what they're doing, that they'll make it a really good asset to the neighborhood.
Great, thank you. Did we get any email or correspondence?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to bring it back to the board. Who has questions? Anyone have questions?
Oh, that's the other neighbor.
Can't get close enough to it to.
I've got a few.
Sure.
So, yeah, I
Mr. Sweeney.
did go out to the site and stop in the driveway before the gate. So the gate at the front is going to remain, correct?
Correct.
And this little piece of wood fence is going to remain?
Yes, sir.
And then the cyclone fence that's here remains, correct?
Where are we looking, Fred?
Right at Cliff Drive, at the
Okay.
Cliff Drive frontage.
So this gate and
the gate that's there.
This gate is automatic.
Okay.
Yeah, there's an automatic gate there, and then there's a piece of
Fence along here.
stake, grape stake style fence, and then there's a cyclone. So that all stays. And then coming up the site, so this asphalt paving driveway that you show,
Correct.
is that all there? That's
Yeah.
existing?
Yep, that big circle.
Okay, so that all remains.
Yep,
Okay.
all the way back to the three-car garage.
And then on your general approach to your architecture, on your elevations on sheet
A5.
A5, are you planning at some point to have gutters and downspouts, or no gutters and downspouts?
Yeah, I showed them on the roof plan. I didn't detail them on the elevations yet.
So you may not see these eave-ends, the rafter tails.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then, am I reading this right? This, on the south elevation, this front outside trellis appears to be from post to post about 35 feet in span. So
Oh, you mean the front covered porch?
Yeah.
Not the trellis.
I mean, this front covered
Yes.
porch. So that's a 35-foot span truss? That helps.
Not a truss. It's going to have 4 posts. There's some posts in the front that come down.
Oh, maybe I'm not
hard to
reading that.
see
It's
it.
hard to see. So is
Yeah.
that a post?
Looks like
Yeah,
a post.
there's you can see it on
Okay,
the
so
floor
there are
plan.
okay.
So this looks like a post here.
Yeah, there's one on each
Gotcha.
end.
All right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
There you go.
And then you said you're gonna put a standing seam.
That's
roof?
what's there now, but the whole roof's coming off, and this is a little porch that's tucked under the existing 8-foot plate, so that's going away.
Let's wait till Fred's finished and then we'll get to you.
And so then, given that, then you have a standing seam metal roof.
Correct.
And how are you going to, do you need to vent attic space or do any venting on this? How does this?
We're
thought about
isoning
that?
it.
Pardon?
Isoning.
Isoning, okay. And then, will this be subject of the new state law requiring solar panels?
That's a good, I don't know that answer.
Okay. And then,
Could
have
always
you been
do-
able to determine yet whether you're tier 2 or tier 3? Do you know yet?
We haven't been told.
Okay.
I would imagine tier 3, given the size of the addition, correct?
It depends on the.
500 square feet?
It's the 500 square foot of
But we're not in the hillside.
paved surface.
all right.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's just a question.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Fred. Jan?
Tier 3.
Joe?
Is the house basically going to look the same? You're just adding to it,
Yeah, give it a facelift.
cleaning it up, and
Making it fit the
property
property.
is going to look the same. Garages are not changing.
Correct. It's batten board as well.
Batten board as well. Okay, and the same type of windows, same gable
Yeah,
windows.
they have the same sill, so we're
Yeah.
going for that same look.
And the windows in the gable ends are basically going to stay the same.
They are on the side of the driveway side, but on the other side, they're completely different.
Yeah.
Well, actually, on the back of the house, there's a window. You can see it right. This is a window in the gable end of that rear bedroom. And then the front is the other gable, is the master that has the trellis,
All right. Okay. And this is
which is
the-
right here, and we're going to post down in the middle too, given the span. We're just going to do 6x6s, keep the beam low, and tuck it underneath and then put 4x4s, and if she wants to put 2x on top, depending on how much light's coming through.
It'll give the house more mass, basically.
Yeah, and it'll break up that sunlight too that's coming in on this south side.
Is this the house of the lady that spoke?
Correct. That's Susan's house next door. And then that's the house on the other side, which is
Two-story.
across from, yeah, it's kind of a two-story.
Basically, when I purchased this house, it came with, I think, 13 violations that the house came with, and so it checked off the violations.
Is the house to the west, is a board and bat also?
Hold on.
Vertical board and bat?
Yes, it is. And so is the garage. Both attached and detached garages.
Yeah, like I drove by, but you can only get to the front gate. And
Yeah, you can't see anything down there.
these are good pictures.
It's,
It's like a yard I wanted to grow up on.
yeah, it's nice. That's looking towards Braemar,
Yeah.
out the other front. So it has two frontages.
Okay.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Lisa? Robert? Okay.
Are the changes to the house going to require any landscape?
It's minimally landscaped at this point.
Okay.
Removable stone in the back, patio.
Cool. I don't have any questions. Garage doors? Are you putting in new garage doors?
No.
Safety
Actually, I don't even
system?
know what they are. I haven't seen that garage in a long time.
Yeah, they need just to be removed and replaced, basically the same that's there now. It was part of a garage permit that was, because it had to be as part of the violation, they had over encroached.
So they're already in, but you're not, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there they are right there. They have glass in the top,
Oh,
and,
okay.
and then they open up, and they're
Great.
kind of barn style.
All right, thank you. Comments? Who has any
I
comments?
got one more question.
Oh, please.
That is the last,
That's Susan's house across
Next
to the
door.
west. That's the garage, and the house goes this way, and then this is another garage, a three-car.
of Susan, of the speakers.
The neighbor at 3408 next door to the west.
It's got a slate roof, and yours will have a,
Is it slate? Is it concrete?
Composite clay or
Oh yeah,
concrete?
it is. It's
Right,
probably
I'm-
like cow shake, like a cow shake. It's super heavy. It's
and you're
all
proposing a standing seam.
correct.
And you'll bring colors when you come next time, right?
We'll bring a sample.
So, who has comments? Who would like to speak? Lisa? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I find that this project is very suitable for the neighborhood with the equestrian theme that is surrounding it, and that the board and bat and the standing seam metal are ranchy in nature, as is the neighborhood, and it will look great.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Sweeney?
Comments.
Yes.
Standing seam roof, I would encourage you to explore a fairly high standing seam.
Okay.
And also, this may be one of those houses where we do a standing seam that doesn't necessarily have to be dark brown or black. This might be one that could be a little lighter, given the nature of where it is. And,
Yeah.
because it's so surrounded with plantings and trees and whatever, it's kind of sits by itself. So that might be something you could explore. The other thing, if you can find it in your budget, is to modify or replace the wood stake fence at the front. Might help. You've done a nice job on the, I don't know if you bought the house with the gate that's in place now, but that's a nice gate, so the fence ought to kind of come to the same level as the gate. So, and perhaps a little landscaping out there in the front. I'm not thinking about manicured stuff, but just cleaned up a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, we'll bring that in. That's no problem.
And then the last item would be just lighting at the gate in the evening for people to find it. It's probably important, and then just general lighting on the site we'll be interested in.
Okay.
I'd like to see your elevations here are pitch black roof. definitely see what the
Oh, yeah.
what the standing seam looks like with
Yeah,
this
the
board and
shingles
bat.
they didn't come out very well there, did they?
I'm picturing a house. I'm picturing a house that's very light, very thin, even the rain gutters don't give it any strength. Could wind come up and blow it away? Yeah, so when you do the elevations, delineate them a little bit more and put some scale in it and put some people in it
Okay.
and make it look like what it's going to look like rather than what it's going to be built like, quote.
Yeah, I kind of follow up. It kind of reminds me of those shirts you used to wear in the 70s. Really, that's not quite.
A little too bright.
Yeah, it's a little.
And this kind of hides those trellises that you want, that you're putting in. You need to definitely either put some shadows for the trellises or something to make them stand out.
I didn't take the time. I can do lighting and renderings 3D and like on the orthogonal, I can fix that up.
Yeah, work on your line weight.
Yeah.
So, and this is very dark. So now that we know that it's going to be standing metal seam, now you have a great opportunity.
I'll lighten it up. I'll put the lines on there for you.
Okay, cool.
And we'll make them all match.
Excellent.
Will the lines on the roof match the board and bat on the?
Boy, there. We'll leave that up to you.
A lot.
That might cost twice as much.
All right, any more comments? None. I'd say they're here for, I guess, comments only. Is that correct? So,
correct.
Someone would like to draft a motion?
Okay, well, I can attempt that. So I think that I would like to give your project positive comments. I think that it's going to be a nice improvement, even though I couldn't see the house from the driveway, but I saw your pictures that you brought in. So it would be helpful for us when you come back to the full board to show a color board of what colors are going to be, including the metal roof, the outdoor lighting that you'll be placing around the home and also at the front gate. And what the seams are going to be on the metal. Oh, okay. You have those on the your metal roof.
Okay.
Ridge.
Oh, the ridge.
Ridge and
Size
valley
of ridge.
details. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
already.
it's very suitable for the neighborhood. That's my motion.
All right, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments? Okay, no comments or all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. So are you coming back?
Full board.
Full board in 2 weeks?
That would be great, actually, if you would just agendize us. I can make it happen and no problem.
Mr. Chair, just to confirm, it will be an indefinite continuance, especially with if it's for project design approval as part of the application completeness review process.
So it's indefinite before the full board.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks for your time. Have a good night.
All right, bye-bye. Okay, the next item on the agenda is 630 Miramar Drive. Please come forward. Thank you, Miramonte. I've got to get new glasses. Oh, I don't have glasses. Okay, well, there you go. This is a new item, concept review. So I'll read into the minutes. Proposal to demolish an existing 1,993 square foot single unit residence and construct a new 3,132 square foot, 3-story single unit residence with a 1- and 2-car garage for a total of 956 square feet of garage space. Project includes new landscaping, driveway, and motor court. The proposal total of 3,610 square feet of development on a 14,411 square foot lot in the Hillside Design District is 84% of the required maximum floor lot to area ratio. No final appealable action will be taken. Project will require neighborhood preservation, hillside design, and slope lot findings. So if you could introduce yourselves and tell us what you're doing.
Dan Weber, architect.
Jose Sanchez, project manager.
We have plenty of microphones to go out, so Dan, you can have it all here.
Leela Boyce, designer.
Thank you.
All right. Our client, Zarin Dinsel, really wanted to be here today as well, but he unfortunately had to be out of town for business, so he couldn't make it.
Okay.
This is 630 Miramonte. Our client bought the property 6 months ago or something like that. He's a local Santa Barbaran, and he intends to make this his full-time home and wants this to be his forever house. So we're putting quite a bit of care and attention into making sure this is just right.
Great.
He's got a big local family, and he wants to have a family-oriented place where he can have kids and have his parents come out of town and stay there, and have his local family be able to come over and hang out.
So the driveway comes up the front.
Yeah, the Miramonte Drive, it starts low and it goes up. It's not too steep, but it's a fairly steep climb up this hill, and then it gets real steep and comes up on top of TV Hill up here. So these are all the uphill houses that look out towards the ocean, and then the downhill side houses start stepping down the hill. And so the hill climbs pretty steep, so all these houses step up the hill. So we've got a bunch of photos of the neighborhood. It's a really eclectic neighborhood, and it transitions from a denser neighborhood down low as you get close to Cliff Drive, and as it starts to get up steep, the lot sizes start to grow, and the houses start to grow in size as you get closer up the hill. So we're right on that fringe between the more dense neighborhood and these bigger homes up at the top. Right up above us is this is a pretty big house that's really visible. It's a white stucco rectilinear house that you can see from a lot of places on the mesa. So that's just a good landmark to look at. And then this house is right up on the ridge. This is probably the most highly visible house in the entire city. It's a modern house with flat roofs that looks out over downtown and all out over the mesa as well. I think I'll start with a photo from the subject property as kind of an introduction. This is a view standing on the front deck of the property, looking towards the east. So this is why our client bought this property, is because of this east view. It looks out towards East Beach and towards the pier and towards the harbor and the coastline as it heads down towards Carpinteria. These houses do have a view to the south, but directly south of our property, there's a big tree on our property that blocks the view to the south, and then a bunch of big trees that across the street that block the view to the south. So this property is really about the view to the east. And as are the adjacent properties, the hill kind of steps up, and these houses have great views to capture this east view. So let's get to the site plan. Actually, you know what? Maybe while we're on this page, I'll give you a little bit more of a tour of this property. I took quite a bit of time to understand how visible this lot is in the neighborhood locally, and even as you go a little further. So starting from the east, which is downhill, and climbing up towards the property is not quite visible. It's right up behind that foreground planting. And then as I get a little closer heading up the street, I'm probably right in there. You see it start to peek out. And then once you get almost right in front of our lot, it starts to become more visible. This is the existing house that's there. And then right directly in front of the property, it's fully visible. So the existing house has a deck on the south side. It's got a pretty big understory, which is just concealed with this wood siding. And then it's got a living room form and a bedroom form. Everything that you see in this photo is encroaching into the front and side yard setback. So one or both.
Wow.
I'll show it to you on the site plan. So now, as you come from the north and start to come down the street, it's not quite visible. There's that big tree on the left side of the road that's blocking the visibility of the house. You get almost right in front of our lot, or we're about at the property line, you can start to see the house, the property peek out through the trees. And then really only right in front of the house does it really become visible. So then I looked further away. This property is really hard to spot from the neighborhood because it's on a pretty gently sloping. It's before it gets really steep, so all the layers of trees and roofs block the view of the house. But we wanted to understand how visible it is. You can't actually see the house, but I can see the neighbor's house. The house just to the east of us, right down there, with the red chimney. Then this is really the only spot I could clearly see the house from. It's from Arroyo, and it's looking right up the driveway right here between those two. And then as you get further away, this is from Shoreline Park. You can't see it. It's tucked in behind the trees.
This is not it. That's that modern house up on the top.
Yeah, that's that big one up above. So it's way down. It's down tucked in the trees. And then, as you get further away, it just gets less and less visible. So the only really, the only places you can see it from is really right in front of the house. And then we have one property that's to the west of us that looks over this house. So this is a pretty critical relationship. Okay, now that's a good enough tour.
Okay.
The property directly up the hill from us, this is 650 Miramonte Drive.
No maintenance, landscape.
Yeah. This has a really good view to the south and a little bit to the west as well. Their view is blocked by the same trees ours are blocked by. But then their view opens up to the east and looks down the coast similar to the view that we have. We've met with these neighbors, Lynette and Marcia, and they grew up in this house. Their parents built it. So what happens here is really important to them. They're here today. And they still own the house and operate it as a rental property, and their tenant, Zach, is here today as well. So it's really important that we work with them and we get a design that they feel is an improvement over what's there today. That's what we're going for.
Is that your house?
This is our property, yeah. That's the subject property. Notice there's this one big tree right here that actually grows up through the deck. All right. Okay. This is what's here today. The driveway comes up real steep and narrow to an elevated driveway in the middle of the lot, a 2-car garage. This is the existing residence, and the decks that surround the house goes all the way. This is actually a non-conforming shed that's built right up to the property line. There's a roof form here that's built right up to the property line as well. So this is a 1-2-car garage and a covered carport. There's some terraced up areas on the site as it climbs up to the back as well. So when we started studying this, we looked at the view and what was here today, this view being really important, and noticed that the areas where you're getting this great view from are the areas that are encroaching into the setbacks. So we had this decision to make: are we going to try to salvage this house to salvage the view, or build a new house? And from our client's point of view, a new house that didn't capture that same view was a non-starter. So what were we going to do? We looked at saving this. We had contractors come out and look at it, and structural engineers come out to look at it. It's in really bad shape. It's slumping down the hill, and the decks are drooping by a foot or more from the high side to the low side. There's beams that are entirely rotted through, literally not connected to each other with termite damage. So we determined that given the constraints of the encroachments and what we would have to go through to try to get modifications and the state of the current structure, it just wasn't feasible to save it. So we endeavored to build a new house that conforms to the setbacks And rather than has this real steep, strong face pushing up to the street, that it steps back into the hill and recedes and respects the landscape. And also stays out of our neighbors' views and is a rich, warm material palette that blends in and recedes into the neighborhood a little bit more. This has been one of the more challenging sites that we've worked on. It's really tough. Maybe rather than this plan, I'll start at the floor plan level. Okay, so I'm going to start at the lowest level. Rather than climb the hill to an elevated parking area, we decided to enter right off the street into a new garage that's nearly at street level. It's only a couple feet above street level, so we didn't have to waste the whole site with a dangerous, narrow driveway. So we have a single and a 2-car garage so that we have the same amount of parking that's there today. And the nature of these garages, it's all hunkered and tucked. It's mainly subterranean. And it's meant to feel like a lot of the stone work that you see all over Santa Barbara, particularly on the hillside areas like the Riviera, where these garages and site walls almost feel like they're part of the site. And then there's a structure that's set back of a different architectural character sitting on top of them. So it reduces the perceived mass, bulk, and scale of the project and lets the ground element feel like very heavy and rooted into the ground. So that's the garage. You enter up an exterior site stair to the main entry level. We're using the roofs of the garage as outdoor spaces.
Is this stone? What do you think?
Stone stair. Yeah, I want it to feel like just like these old stone stairs. I want the garages to feel historic, not ancient and decrepit. I mean, this is starting to crumble a little bit, but like it could have been 100 years old. So you come up to the entry level. We're using the roofs of the garages as outdoor spaces. We have a den, or a secondary living space, that lets you enjoy these outdoor spaces, and 1 bedroom at this level. You come into the entry and you climb up the next level. Dashed in red there, the extents of the existing residence on the front.
Oh, I see. Wow.
And in fact, we have an exhibit that I brought with us that shows the relationship between the new and the existing a little bit better for you. So you climb up that stair, you arrive at the main living space, a kitchen, living, dining space, which is oriented east to take advantage of that view, and 2 bedrooms at the back, which are tucked into the hill. These are they're probably 50% buried by being tucked into the hill there. The main living space opens onto the roof of the element below as the primary outdoor space. It's a pretty small amount of outdoor space, but it's the best that we can do. Is this our exhibit that shows the...
It is, yes.
So we wanted to show you all how we're relating to the existing structure at each level. So this is the lowest level, our proposed garages. The street is just off the cut line in the existing driveway neck. The really bold line's the property line. This lighter dashed line is the setback. So at the lowest level, this is the edge of the deck, this black line. And remember that wood screen wall at the front of the deck? It's probably encroaching by 8 feet or 10 feet. So we're stepping back from there to the conforming setback. And then as you go up a level to the entry level, this is the roof of our garage below. And you can see the edge of the deck. Our first living level is set back probably 30 feet from what's there today. This is the edge of the deck, and this is the footprint of the house. And then as you go up to our main living level, we're stepped back significantly from the existing deck and the existing residence so that we're conforming to the setbacks and terracing back the hill. All right. Oh, the landscape drawing?
Landscape is missing.
Yeah, she want to go.
It's not here.
It's not in this set.
You want to do
Shoot.
landscape now?
We haven't engaged a landscape architect yet. We're just at the conceptual level review. But we did a really nice drawing, which unfortunately we don't have. I'll describe it to you.
I'm anxious to see the house.
I want to see what the house looks
Yeah, I
like.
know.
Great.
All this buildup.
Sorry, guys. No,
That's a landscape
no.
plan that we slip sheeted, but it seems like they didn't.
Long story short, is all of the roof space, with the exception of the roof of this highest bedroom, is either green space or outdoor spaces that are usable as outdoor living spaces. So the roof of this main living volume, we envision as a green meadow that this neighbor can look over.
So I have a quick question, just to interject. Is the city going to allow this in high fire? Is there an issue?
Yeah, that'd be my question. Have you passed this? So we have been told on several occasions now by several applicants that they've proposed these green roofs.
The fire.
Yeah.
And the city fire department, unlike the county, has said we're not going to allow them. Have you checked that yet?
We haven't, again, this is our very first concept pass, so we have not attacked that
No,
yet
but
with
that's
the
what
city.
we've discovered over the last couple of years, that every time these are proposed, the city fire department says no. When we find out they're approved in the county, we're scratching our heads.
Well, we
We
wish you
have,
luck.
one of the goals of this project, one of the most important things to our client is the landscaping.
Okay.
And it's really important to him that he has a ton of green space and a ton of nature around him.
Yeah, well, we understand. I'm just saying that's what we've run into.
Well, we're definitely going to tackle that. We've already been working with landscape architects on this, and we've got a really amazing landscape architect that has some evidentiary experience that indicates that green roofs increase the fire resistance of the house.
We understand completely. We're just saying that local fire guys aren't buying it, at least the last time we heard about it.
What, they're afraid of a grass
Well,
fire?
no, apparently, yeah, somehow the city fire guys have not bought that argument at all. Anyway, so that's just something you'll have to deal with.
I'm hopeful
Go
that the very smart and talented
Where'd Erica
official
go?
people that we have working in our city departments will help us figure out how to solve that problem.
Okay, this gives
Oh,
us
no.
a picture
Anyway,
of what
There
it
you
looks like.
go.
Okay, so this is I would consider this the primary elevation because it faces east.
Yep.
Miramonte Drive, the site climbs. This would be a section through the site around our setback on the east side. This is the face of the garage right at the setback line, which is that line. So you enter into the garage down below. You climb up to the main entry level, and then again to the main living level, which faces east. And then we have the 2 bedrooms at the back of the house tucked into the hillside.
Okay.
We're staying well below the height limit. On the west side of the house, this is the side, if you look out this side of the house, you're seeing the hillside because our neighbor to the west, floor level is about at our roof level. So out this side of the house is green. And a series of retaining walls. There's a bunch of tricky site conditions there to retain the slope that have been created over the years.
And let's swap this set with the.
Sure. And then, oh yeah, can we grab that one, Erica? I'll finish those elevations and then we'll go back to the landscape drawing.
We had to make some minor change on some of the elevations that we submitted.
So we dashed in for you the outline of the existing house here so that you can see how we're pulling away from the street. So existing house on the east, existing house on the west facing our neighbor uphill. And then on the south side, which faces Miramonte, this is that lower garage form that I want to have this character right here, and then the house steps away as you go back. The relationship to these two neighbors is probably the most sensitive thing in the project. And between now and the time that we come back for PDA, we want to have this really, really refined so that we get these elevations exactly right. We're pretty close, but the goal here is that from our main living level, we get high enough that we can see over our neighbor to the east towards that eastern view, and that our neighbor to the west is high enough that they see right over our property to the west, so that we slot right into that view very, very carefully, so that we can have a good relationship with our neighbors, and our client can get the view that he wanted with a project that conforms and improves the context to the neighborhood. Let's go to our landscape plan. So this site plan is drawn through the main living level, the higher living level. The main kitchen, living, dining here on the east side of the property. We want a good amount of landscaping between us and the neighbor to the west, both for our privacy as well as their privacy. This level opens out onto this outdoor living space, which we've stepped back away from our neighbor to the east. We want to have a landscape buffer around this outdoor living space. This looks down to the roof of the garages below.
That's the garage below there?
Yeah, garage below there and there.
Okay. So this is down below this?
That's right.
One story?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
The character of the landscape, again, this is just our in-house shot at it to try to see how much green space we can get. But we want it to be very native. So that means a lot of build on the oak nature that we have on site. We want to have very low water usage. We're shooting for a goal, which is really ambitious, to use no new domestic water for landscape purposes, and try to achieve that with a combination of rainwater capture and reuse, and possibly even gray water. We're going to be showing that next time we submit. There's only one significant tree on the property. That's this big one, which we're going to retain. It's that huge tree that goes over the street. And we want to have a real natural, native California feel to this landscape design. So we're here for conceptual level comments.
Great.
We're looking forward to your feedback. Any other feedback from our neighbors? This is a really tight-knit neighborhood, which is great. That's what our owner wants, is to be part of a nice neighborhood like this. So we're looking forward to coming back for PDA and incorporate your comments and the comments from our neighbors. Anything I missed, guys?
All right. Thank you very much. Great presentation. Love the build-up. Bring it back. So I have some slips here for people from the neighborhood that would like to speak. So you have 2 minutes, and what we'd like you to do is introduce yourselves and come to the podium. I have a Zachary Siegel. Would you like to come up and speak?
Hi, my name is, do I push anything or I'm good?
Is the microphone on?
It is green.
Okay, you're on.
Okay. My name is Zach Siegel. I'm the first tenant at 650 Miramonte, which we're the neighbors right above, whose views, are involved in that. We've lived in the house for 10 years since we moved from New York City, where we spent more than the prior 10 years looking at the back of another building. So when we moved to Santa Barbara, we looked at, dozens of houses over the course of a weekend. And of course, when we drove up the driveway at 650 Miramonte, we were knocked out by the view. The house is charming, and it has a lot of character, and we are honored to live there. But the view is pretty exceptional. We moved to Santa Barbara with our 1-year-old, and our son, Morris, was born at Cottage Hospital here in town. So it's really the only house. It's the only bedroom. It's the only place he's ever known to ride his bike around the house with his sister, endlessly. And it's also the only view he's ever known. So we had a chance earlier today to talk with Dan and the team at Anacapa Architects, and the plans are really extraordinary. There's so much to like there. Really, the only concern we have is just about the height of the main structure, and really especially to the proximity of the patio that we use pretty often to entertain at, and really the view just out of the living room. So we just ask for the sensitivity of the board as you consider those things. We understand inevitably the draw at 630 Miramonte is very much the same, which is the view there. So everybody has the same interest here. So that's really the main point.
615.
Yeah, what is your address again?
Ours is 650 Miramonte.
Oh, just above it. Okay.
Just above it.
Just above
Yes.
it. Just the west of it.
Yep. But beautiful design. We'd love to see the neighborhood improved, of course, and just the height.
Thank you
Can
very
I
much.
ask him some questions before he sits down?
Sure.
With the existing house now, it's obvious that you've indicated in red lines where the existing house. You look completely, you don't see the house below you at all now.
We do see the house.
You do see the house?
Yes, it-
Oh, yeah.
the
Okay, well, it's
pictures you're-
below your, well below your view, yeah.
Correct.
It is below, not well, but well below your view. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Marcia Cutler.
Marcia Cutler. That's 650 Miramonte, where Zach lives, is a family house. My sister and I have it. And that's the Zuzalik house you're going to pull down. But we had a meeting today with Dan and Jose, and they were wonderful and put us
Same
through all
thing,
this.
same one?
And the plans are lovely, just beautiful. And as Zach says, our only reluctance, the patio level is 208, under 290 feet, and their floor level of that last story is 280 feet. So if the tenants want a 10, 12, 14-foot room, it will be a problem. And we love the green roof, so you'll have to really do some science fair things for the firemen to see some figures, but it's lovely.
Yeah.
Any questions?
No, I have no questions. Thank you. Just Robert Baird. Trying to get that.
Robert Baird, and I'm one of the co-owners at 650 Miramonte also. And I kind of agree. I think we met with the architect today and looked at the plans, and it seems like every effort is being made to preserve our view as it kind of wraps up the hill instead of building straight up, which we really appreciate. And the only thing, same thing in the main room, seems to be how tall that's going to be right now seems to be a variable in the plans. And I understand that it could probably be anywhere from an 8-foot ceiling to a 12 or 13-foot ceiling. And it's that area that we're concerned about and would like some consideration on when the design becomes a little more refined, is that you consider what the height of that main room is going to be, because that's going to have the most effect on that view, for our point of view.
Over that,
Thank you.
Over that.
Thank you. Susan Strict.
I'm not listed, but I'd like to make a comment. I'm a neighbor.
Okay, well, hold on. Is Susan Strict here?
I think she was the last.
She was the last one.
Oh, she just,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead and speak, but make sure you fill out a yellow form.
My name is Ralph Nair. I live at 622 Miramonte,
Mhm.
and I'm probably the neighbor that'll be most affected because I'm the next door neighbor, and the proposed house is just above me. I'm on the downside of the slope from that So I'm on the east side of this proposed project. I've lived in this house since I was 4 years old. I inherited it from my parents. My dad built the house. My comments are I'm going to ask a series of questions, and I probably won't get answers here, but I have some concerns. So first of all, I have a very fragile retaining wall that's between me and this proposed project. It was built about 1952, I'd say, and it's probably at the high. It varies in height, but the highest part is about 5.5 feet tall, and it's about 3.5 feet from my house. So any grading that happens on this project will probably push that wall over and into my house. So I'm concerned about that. Second question, I noticed that the house this proposed project is a 3-story house. They don't call the garages a story, but there's the garage and then the main floor and then the next floor above that. So I think that the zoning there is only for 2-story. I also see that the outside living deck and area and the pool, which is towards my side of the property, is about 10 or 12 feet from the property line, and I'm concerned about pool noise. I don't know how that's going to be abated. That's really close to the property line. And speaking of the pool, I notice it's on the 2nd level, and it's above the garages, and I guess I'm concerned what will happen to all that water. I'll probably get a tsunami if there's an earthquake, because it'll just come right down onto my house. Another question I had is I didn't see mention of drainage or water runoff and how that's going to be handled. Also, I didn't see mention of outdoor lighting, how that might affect me. That may be, because this is a concept, maybe probably not on the, I didn't see it on the plans. And finally,
wrap up your
pardon me?
comments? You can wrap up your comments. Yeah.
Yes, and one more comment. The proposed house is going to be massive compared to the one that's there now, almost double this footprint size or more. And so I'm just concerned about how that's going to fit into the neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Make sure you fill out and we got one email, I believe, from Avo Summer. That's another property. Okay, never mind. All right. Thank you, Fred. All right, come back to the board. Did we get any other email or correspondence?
No, Mr. Chair.
So I'll bring it to the board for a question. Who has questions?
You turn it to 301.
301.
One back. No.
That's the
Maybe
original
landscape.
house.
Maybe landscape.
Over here. This one, Fred? Or Joe?
Yes, yes. Can you kind of describe, this is landscape, walk up on this?
Sure.
That's the driveway there, garages.
So you come in off the driveway.
Yeah.
Using the existing curb cut. It's not really a curb cut because it's a casual edge of the asphalt. You come up maybe a couple feet of slope into a driveway area where you come into the garage doors.
Okay.
And then you come up a stairway.
Which is open.
Open to the sky, yeah. Stone stairway like the reference photos I showed you that comes up between these two forms. You land on this, we'll call it the pool deck level, is the entry level. You enter down below, underneath there. And then, yep, right under there, there's a little covered entry. And you climb up an interior stair to this main living space. The main living space opens out onto a roof deck, which is above the den space below there. Behind the den space is an open lawn area.
Okay.
From the main living space, you connect to the 2 bedrooms, bedroom 1 and bedroom 2, which look out over this. They're at the same level as this roof deck, so it can look out over there. And then we just have the hillside behind it.
So basically all this is on the same level.
Yeah, this kind of C shape.
That's the building, but this is all on the same level, all this that I'm covering right here.
Except for the lawn is depressed down at the same level as this pool deck.
So what do you have? You have
Yeah.
rock
Probably
windows? There's no buildings there.
No, that's just earth.
That's just
That's
there. So
earth,
you're going
yeah,
to
it's
have
just
rock And rock,
Probably a site stone wall similar to these
Same here?
stone retaining walls. Yeah. Yep.
so this is one story up. So you have rock here and rock there, and that's going to be down lower. So you'll have rock, and rock.
Well, from this space, you'll have some transparency to this little living space, so you can
Okay.
have some usable site. This is really the usable site areas down at this level. You know, that's where you have a little green space. It's where you have some usable outdoor space. And this is just a small.
Yeah. So the only access to this outdoor space is right here.
Well, it's now if we go back to the floor plan level. This is, you come up the stair from the garages to an entry level.
Okay.
In this space, we called it a pool cabana. You could call it a den, a TV room. It opens out onto the deck on this side, and it also opens out to this little lawn on the north side. So it's transparent through here.
Okay.
So you get a bunch of light through the site.
You have to raise the grade behind that pool cabana space
Actually
to make that
depress the
happen?
grade a little bit.
So this is, the
That's what I say I didn't understand. I didn't
pool
follow
cabana's
that.
looking out onto this, right?
No, it looks out onto the pool.
Oh, it's back here.
Yeah, this is above the pool cabana.
The pool cabana is right here, and that right there.
Oh, the
outdoor
pool
living space.
underneath there.
Right, there you go.
Oh.
So you're looking back through here, and this is this lawn area right
so-
here.
I see, got it.
Yeah, it's all, these elevations are all oriented around trying to make sure that the main space has a view and stays under the neighbor's view. And everything else follows from there.
So you're going to be involved with a lot of sections showing us when you come back,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really understand until I started asking. Okay. I'll think of some more. Go ahead.
All right. Fred, I saw you writing. I'm sure you have questions.
I do have questions. Let's see. First of all, let's just go to. We have an aerial. Oh, here it is. Okay. So the retaining wall that the easterly neighbor is referring to, I'm assuming that's the retaining wall, and it's not on your property, correct?
Let me look.
A101?
I'm looking at A101.
It appears you're correct.
Okay. So as my understanding, the building department will have restrictions on the grading at the edge of the site for you to deal with. So I just wanted to cover that. Let's see. As far as I understand from the zoning code, and I'm looking at Erica just to confirm, residential zoning, the height allowed from finished grade is 30 feet? Is that correct?
That's correct.
And there is no restriction on number of stories?
Correct.
Okay, so it's not confined to 2 stories or 3 stories. It's whatever you build under that 30 feet. Thank you. And then with regards to the FAR, this one I believe is at 84%. Did I read that correctly? So our guidelines basically say anything that's over 85% is an issue that we would be concerned about. It's below 85%. That's why the FAR guideline was put in place, because everyone felt that was a reasonable sized home for a lot size. And then a couple of questions on your floor plan. If I'm reading this correctly, your top floor that's furthest up the hill is a series of 2 bedrooms, correct?
That's correct.
And so if I translate that to the elevation, if I'm looking at sheet A303, that's the element that's those 2 bedrooms, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and you've got them right now kind of delineated as a piece of glass that's separated into 4 sections in front of it. So kind of what you think?
Yeah, we're only at a conceptual level here with the fenestration.
And the only reason I'm asking it is your delineation shows a shadow line, which gives me the impression that sunk back into the wall But if I go back to the floor plan, I don't see that. That window is just a few inches from the surface of the wall.
Yeah,
So I
we-
don't know that there'd be that much saddle line. So have you considered maybe having to put a little more eyebrow over the top of that?
Yeah, we might just actually, the wall on the south-facing side of that form, we might thicken that wall so it
Okay.
has a thickness of a
So that
couple
it sits
feet.
back in. Yeah,
And
just
protect
because
the
of the-
window head and make it feel more authentic.
Because the sun exposure, you're, basically south, that's going to get some definitely sun exposure. And then my last, just food for thought question is either a dumbwaiter or an elevator. And the only reason I say that, you shared with us that the new owner sounds like a multifamily, multi-generation occupancy. And given my recent bout of having to deal with a cast and all kinds of stuff, and given the amount of money you're going to do to build this house, you might think about how to deal with folks that at some point in their life may be challenged to be able to have to walk up all those steps.
How about a funicular?
Or vernacular. We did have a house come to us
Yes,
with a vernacular, which we did approve.
The
Although
city-
it turned out somebody else denied it at staff
Yeah,
level.
I think that's a great comment. We'll have to have more
So you might wanna talk to
conversations
your
with
client
the
about that.
family about that.
And then the only last question I had is, as I'm reading your, I forgot which plan it's on, the garage levels, the finished floor of the garage level, where did I see that?
It's on sheet 8210.
210. You have elevation set out, and I got lost on the 210.
That's the floor plan of the garage. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, okay. Oh, there it is, okay, because it wasn't on the other set that we had earlier. So it's at 256, and you're climbing from about at the entrance of the street. I don't see the grade. So you're going up from 260 to 250 to 256?
No, it's not quite that much. It's, if you look at A220, the street right in front of the driveway, right in front of the curb cut is probably 254 or
54,
or
and then you're going to 2,
53.
so it's about a 2-foot rise.
2-foot
Okay.
slope up, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I just was looking for a differential. And then I do have a comment about the pool and others, but I'll save that for comments. Thank you.
One thing. Jan, do you have any questions? Lisa? No. Robert?
Just curious about building a pool over a garage like this. It's going to be a very shallow pool, I assume, to be able to, I mean, it looks like you got, what, like 11 feet between the garage level up to the pool deck?
Yeah, we, under that, it is, the primary
Your ability to ask
consideration
questions
with that pool is safety. So in order to avoid a rail, which we don't want to have there, we need to keep that pool at about 3'6" deep, so that if somebody's standing in the pool, they're not going to fall over the edge. And there's of course going to be a basin to catch the water that flows over the edge there too. Yeah, on that south side. So
That could be deeper, that end,
exactly,
because there's nothing
yeah.
underneath it.
As you get out from under the garage, the pool basin can be deeper. There's a lot of technical considerations there, and especially budgetary considerations that are going to go into the feasibility of this. But this is what we're starting with right now.
I have some more.
I have a real quick, Erica, just to clarify, we were concerned, would fire accept building with plant life on the roof? Is that going to be an issue? No?
The landscape plan will be reviewed by the fire department prior to deeming the application complete. So,
Well, I just don't want to pull the rug out from under them if, they're going to say whatever.
right, I'm not familiar with the high fire requirements for the landscaping,
Brian?
so it's
Yeah.
something we can look into.
That's just, excuse me, that's just something the applicant's going to have to deal with. They have to work it out.
Okay, all right. Joe, you had a quick
Yeah,
comment?
so this is, well, you haven't indicated any windows yet, but obviously there's windows, no?
I don't anticipate windows on the west side of
So
that
this
form.
is
It's
uphill.
primarily
This is
subterranean.
uphill here.
Yeah.
So that's mostly retaining is what we're looking at. Yeah.
I don't see any master bedroom
It's, the master bedroom is probably this bedroom down here.
The guest room. Okay.
It could be one of these two, but I would say it's probably this one.
Any more?
No, that's fine. That's fine. No, no.
Yeah, I was just, my question is, is the storage designed for the retaining, or is it, what?
We just didn't quite get to that. We need a laundry room here, we need a powder room, we might program one of these spaces as the laundry and powder, but we're just planning on some support spaces for a house that we want to have at this level. These are tucked into the hill, so those types of functions are going to make the most sense back there.
Yeah, because I was noticing here, you
don't have a laundry room down there, yeah. Yeah, this makes sense.
And also here, you don't have any doors, so I'm figuring you're just going to work on that one.
Yeah, one of these is probably going to be pool equipment.
And skylights?
I don't anticipate any skylights.
No skylights, okay.
So I'm not clear. Did we go into comments yet?
No,
No, we're
Still into questions?
Let's
Okay.
go to questions.
Any other questions?
Oh, yeah, landscaping. Oh, there's still a lot to see.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go into comments. Who has comments?
Maybe just one quick question.
Sure.
Do you have any sense of the required balance of cut and fill for this site, or I mean, are you gonna have to excavate out a lot of soil to make this happen?
I hope it's not a lot, but I anticipate the balance is going to result in export, not import.
Yeah.
You know, we're trying to hunker into the hill
Yeah,
as
yeah.
much as we can, so it's going to be carving out some.
Seems like a lot of cut to make it happen.
Yeah, but we haven't done a calculation on that yet.
So I know you had a real quick question. Do you want to speak it real quick right now, please? Just real quick, yes.
I live across the street.
Yes.
Our street only has parking on one side, and this is my neighbor across. And anyway, I'm just curious what your parking situation you're anticipating with this three-car garage, and as far as a family, a multi-family coming. Are you just thinking of using all of the shared space we're all using, or changing it, or?
Well, that is a consideration. I wish we had more room for parking, but on a steep lot like this, there's just not a lot of option. That's why a three-car garage is really important. So we can get, if there's a guest over, maybe you have a guest park in the garage, or if somebody's out of town staying. The city ordinances, as I understand them, don't allow us to park within the front yard setback. So we don't have the chance by the book to park there, although there is probably enough room if you look at our site plan to park 3 cars on the property between the front yard setback and the property line.
All right. We're done with, you have a question, Lisa?
Follow on the parking. Just so you understand, the city of Santa Barbara does not allow parking other than the required parking of 2 spaces on the site, and they don't allow parking in the setback area. So any parking on the street is subject to Public Works. So it's unfortunate that some of these older neighborhoods that are on small, narrow streets don't allow parking. So, and parking is not a purview of this board. We don't get to make that decision.
Hold on, Fred. We've got a technical issue. There's like a bug in the.
Is that me?
I don't know what it is. Really distracting. I don't know.
Call the TV guys. Find out what's going on. Let me continue, otherwise we'll
yes,
get further behind.
Yeah, please.
With
Yeah.
regards to the soil, the amount, Eric, as I understand it, once it hits a certain amount, don't we have to make a special finding or some effort?
Yes, you'll have to make grading findings.
And is that past a certain amount of soil?
Yes,
Okay.
I can confirm that number for you.
So that'll be important information for when they return, okay. And then, as I understand it, under the new building code, you'll be required to install solar panels, as I understand the new rules. And so it'll be interesting to see how you're going to accommodate that on this compact site. The other issue that is going to need some attention, certainly from our board, our guidelines call for decks and areas above the second level, and I forgot exactly how it's worded because I forgot to bring my book today. But anything 15 feet from the property line is subject to our discretion as to whether to allow that or not. So the applicant might want to check the guideline issues in our guideline requirements. And where that might be of concern is where you're showing the pool within what appears to be 6 feet of 5 or 6 feet, 7 feet from the property line. And then also the configuration of the pool deck right adjacent to the pool, the deck area right adjacent to the pool, because that's again within 15 feet. The outdoor living area at the next level up above the den or pool cabana section appears to have some planting in there, so landscaping might be important in order for us to make a finding that that might be acceptable because it is still less than 15 feet as you climb up the hill. So those will be something I'll be interested to look at because we will have to make a determination of whether we want the applicant to adhere to the 15-foot guideline or not. And in some cases, we've not required that, but some cases, many cases, we've required it. So that'll be something we need to look at.
Okay.
In general, the city has told us on many occasions that we're not required to guarantee anybody's view from anybody's window, either the applicant's proposed project or adjacent neighbors. But I think the applicant at this point has made a valiant effort to reduce the amount of hindrance of views from all parties around here. And in looking at, you had a drawing, where is it? An elevation street section that shows the adjacent houses. Yeah, that one. I actually had an even better one than that. Yeah, we had one earlier. Maybe it was in the other set. It was in the other set.
I think that's the best one.
What sheet is that, Fred?
That sheet's on A303. So that shows the relationship of the house to the west and the house to the east. And I think that, in my view, kind of resolves some of the issues about any height concerns. Right now, just scaling off of the drawings, it appears that from the finished floor of this second level, I'm sorry, I'm not on the camera, could be 13.5 or 14 feet to the top of the roof, but I think that'll get itself resolved once they can determine whether or not they can do the green roof in which the way they've presented, or they'll have to do it in some other fashion. So I'm not overly concerned at this point about the height of the buildings in relationship to the neighbors, which was my initial concern when I went out to the site yesterday. Actually Friday, went out and looked at it, and I saw the house above it on the east side looming kind of over the old house. But now that I understand what you're doing, I think that is a pretty sensitive solution to alleviating, large conflicts. And it's always hard to tell. We had a house over on the other side of the mesa where it was a similar flat roof, contemporary design, and the house across the street was 12 feet, I think 12 or 15 feet, floor to floor. But it turned out as they built it, the parapet came up, and it really did get high. And it did start to block their view. So it's probably just something we have to look at. I don't know that we want to require story poles on this project, but it's maybe something we ought to think about as we move down the road. We know those are expensive to do, but that might be something we might have to look at, but just keep that in the back of our mind as the application moves forward. That's my comments.
Okay, thank you. Jan?
Yeah, I just want to say I think that you've been very sensitive to your lot and your neighbors and with the design of the house in keeping with the hillside, and I think you've done a really nice job so far. So I look forward to seeing the rest of it.
Thank
you. Go ahead, Lisa.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Go
Oh, yeah, I'll agree with what Jan says. I'm a little curious to see if you do a section, what the depressed lawn area will look like. I have a slight concern that it might be 2 wall planes against the floor plane, so I'll be looking forward to seeing that. Otherwise, I think it's a really nice approach, and that you're using the topography really well and have been sensitive to your neighbors, so I think it's supportable.
I agree with the positive comments. I think it's pretty neat how you fit this building into the site. It's definitely sensitive to the topography, like they were saying. I appreciate how you've kind of left like a landscape element in the middle of it. Also kind of curious on how that gets detailed out. I mean, that's an opportunity to be something neat to look upon from what is your pool cabana area you're describing. And also I appreciate the way you've detailed out like some of the materials with the stone, and hopefully a green roof is something that's feasible. I've been told you can't do it as a landscape architect but in the city, but I don't know, maybe you can convince them, so good luck.
We're going to give it a
Yeah. Yeah, I was just looking at a real quick question. Is this somehow look down into this house? I think it doesn't, right? Or how does this?
The bedroom spaces?
Well, this little deck.
Oh, the roof deck.
Yeah, because
Well, we certainly don't want to look at this house.
Okay.
We probably want to look at their house just as much as
Yes.
they want to look at our house.
Right.
Which is not at all.
Okay.
So that's why we want to step our usable portion back away from the edge so that we have landscape in the foreground that hides their house from us.
You turn yourself. Hopefully the bug won't come back.
That hides their house from us.
Yeah.
But it's just low enough that we get to see over it to the distant view.
Got it.
So yeah, we definitely don't want to look down to the neighbor. We'd like to not even look at the roof, although it might be hard to avoid seeing roofs. But we certainly don't want to be seeing windows or outdoor spaces.
Yeah, the comment I'd like to, in behalf of the board, we highly support your plant material roof. I wish you luck on that. Hopefully you can be a trailblazer perhaps, maybe. But, the fire department has their rules, so I don't know where this will lead to. But, yeah, I think the design is rather extraordinary in terms of how you were being sensitive to the surrounding homes. It's almost like the style of this home is not a style, but I don't know. It's a conformance to the surrounding. it's interesting. So yeah, I really look forward to seeing like a site section, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely.
And how you develop that.
Couple
so
site section.
Those are my only comments. Did you have another comment, Joe?
No.
So they're here for comments only, right? So would someone like to draft a motion?
I'll try it.
Okay.
I'll go for it. I think the board is, would definitely like to have you come back in front of us, and I'll just go through basically positive. I think the board is come back with some sections and a couple sections showing what's happening through there. Definitely need a better than preliminary landscaping to let us know. You're going to have, like Fred has brought up, we're going to have problems with some restraints that we have that as far as your deck and your pool, how close they are on the property line, it's going to blow a lot of stuff out of the water there.
Well, it's actually just a recommendation. So I guess it's a question of, does this board feel comfortable having the
I would just suggest in your motion, Joe, that you just say that we would request the applicant to review the guidelines for 15 feet from the property line for decks.
Fred, you're...
Okay. Yes, please review our guidelines and be prepared to defend your...
It's a recommendation, yeah.
Thank you. Lighting, interested in lighting up, down, grading. How much, what are you taking away? How is it going to affect your especially your downhill neighbor? Kind of delineate more your windows and doors. Show us a little bit more how you're going to get out of the building, how you're going to get in the building. And rock. What kind of rock? Give us some samples. And yeah, I think then that's it.
Okay.
That's my motion.
Do I have a second on the motion? Comments? Any other added? Okay. All those in favor say, now is this returning indefinitely to the full board?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Could I clarify that's returning for project design approval at the full board?
Can they come back for project design?
Yes, it's at the applicant's discretion to submit for project design approval. So.
Okay. So.
I like it. I like it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I think it's more of a natural.
Want me to take those photos?
Yeah. Okay, let's see.
He does a...
Oh my God. 1142 Harbor Hills Drive.
Thank you.
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Makes all the difference when Dan presents them rather than his buddy. No.
So this is a returning project. So if you could please step out. We're running late, real behind, so we want to scooch.
Yeah.
Proposal to remodel, I'll just say it's a proposal to remodel existing covered front entry to an existing 2,530 square foot single unit residence with a detached 460 square foot two-car garage. Project also includes cantilevered trellises and associated landscape and landscape improvements. Project design and final approval is requested. Project requires neighborhood preservation findings. Project was last reviewed on January 6, 2020. Lisa, do we have any minutes? Okay. Oh, look at you.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Read them? Sorry.
Oh.
The comments received from the previous meeting are as follows. The board has reviewed the proposed addition of 34 square feet and finds that the increase to 91% FAR is acceptable. We'd like that you would clarify the heights, arrangements, and species and the massing of the proposed trees. Number 3 would be verify whether the Japanese blueberry hedge can survive in this climate and show how high and large the plant will get. 4, clarify where the wildflower planting will occur, whether the plantings are native to California and how the plantings will look year-round at this particular site. 5, clarify the location of the seawall at the proposed terrace entrance. Seawall. Okay, I was going to say, I didn't think we were on the ocean.
Doesn't get quite that.
Not yet.
6, clarify the elevation change for the 34 square foot addition. 7, the board feels the project will be ready for PDA if the applicant addresses the board's concerns. And finally, bring material for the roof.
Thank you,
Those
Lisa.
were our comments.
So if you can share with us how you address those comments?
Yeah, hi, I'm Tom Oxner, project architect.
Tim Connor, owner.
And so, yeah, we've been on the agenda here for a bit for PDA, and unfortunately, our landscape architect became sick, and was waiting on the plans, and he's not in a good state, and so I'm trying to address some of these on my own. I still have the landscape drawings that I brought from the last meeting. I was hoping to have the new ones, so I'm going to go through the items that I can handle and some of the items that he helped me a little bit address, but we're hoping that maybe some of the items that would remain on the landscape list could follow up on possibly a final if the board here saw to give us PDA tonight. So I'm just going to go right through, I guess. So item 2, let's see, Gordon, is the proposed trees. So I've got the landscape. This is the older landscape plan. I'm going to refer to this.
Okay.
And so this is the older plan with a few answers on it here. So basically the trees, and the way this is arranged, it is this here is looking to the ocean, and then this one actually comes around and goes behind it. And I know the board didn't like that arrangement, and his new one has it properly, but for the purposes of the landscape, he's got the strawberry trees on the hillside that slopes down to Harbor Hills Road, basically. And then on the upper side of the property, which is up here, this turned around, he's got oak trees sitting behind the garage, and then he's got a number of this assortment, probably the crepe myrtle, would be scattered around this area. There was a question as to the Japanese blueberry, which is along the sides, the hedges along the sides, and we need those to get anywhere from 3 to 7 feet high. This is what they're like, and it appears that they'll do well, and they're fairly easy to maintain a good height. The height will vary based on the view requirements and the privacy requirements throughout. The location of the seat wall, well, I'll go through the, let me see, I've got, the wildflowers is still, the board was concerned that the wildflowers were not going to be blooming all year long, and that's true. He was pulling together a list of some varieties but I think that's something maybe he could handle a little bit later, hopefully. The seat wall, I think right now, I'm just going to go through the architectural plans and we can come back to the landscape. Yeah. Okay. So the architectural plans are pretty well ready to go. I've got architectural details and started the structural on them and all the grading sections. And the building height came in 5 inches less than the approved 18 feet height from finished floor. So we're below what you approved. That worked out fine. The materials, we've got Fleetwood bronze units throughout, exterior doors and windows. The comp shingles, it's a deep charcoal composition dimensional shingle. The body is an off-white, and the exterior lights are located.
Which are these type?
2 types of hanging in the wall, and then the garage and the profiles.
What is that?
Oh, this is a pergola. This will be covered with wisteria above the garage. I can show you on the site plan. It shows it on the landscape plan too. So where is that? That's that section right there.
Okay. So is that it?
Yeah, and then the architectural details. I've got the eaves and the roofs and sorted out, and exposed wood rafter tails that project from the interior space to the exterior. We have deep verandas around the south and the southeast side, so the glass will be well shielded under a deep overhang throughout. Yeah, and that's the architectural.
What
what is that? Is that the old color board scheme?
Yeah, this is the color board that there was some concern that there's no metal roof, and so the comp shingles, we're going with a dimensional comp shingle. It's still, we still are holding, we haven't decided between the gunmetal Fleetwood and the dark bronze Fleetwood, therefore we're still holding off on the exact body and the color of the composition shingles, but we'll have that for final. But we still have to look at the gunmetal for the option for the Fleetwood units.
Okay.
And that's what we have for you this evening. Also, I've got one other thing. Just I did notice a letter that came from a neighbor, and there was some concern about, this is the story pole plan, and this is a letter from there was a licensed contractor, Brian Zimmerman, who installed the story poles, and this letter says that he installed them per this plan. This is a photo of those story poles when they were installed, and the photo's taken, and 18 feet above finished floor, and that's exactly what the plans that you had approved show, and I have them here if you'd like me to pull them out. But I know there was concern from the neighbor as to whether the story poles were done accurately.
Okay. Great, thank you. Did we get any correspondence?
Just this letter.
Okay, so this now is that email that I was incorrectly. So we got, let's see, it's from a letter from Avo Samergian. Story poles prior to purchasing. My architect reviewed the story poles in comparison to the architectural, and there seemed to be some discrepancies in accuracy. With that said, I am requesting another round of story poles to be erected, but this time they need to be certified by an independent licensed land surveyor. This will allow the board and neighborhood to obtain a much clearer idea of what's being proposed. So that's the content of the letter. Is anyone here to speak on behalf of the project? No one here to speak? I close the floor, bring it back to the board. Does the board have any questions?
Oh, I have one. On sheet A61, you show light fixtures. Now it's on. Light fixtures on sheet A6.1. Do those have a color on the bodies?
Those are a deep bronze.
A bronze color?
It's a softened color, but they're a deep bronze.
Okay. Thank you. That was it. Only question.
Ann? Joe? Okay. This is your moment. It's all this landscape, so.
Well, we need comments.
You have any questions
Go ahead.
for landscape? Any questions?
I don't have any questions that have changed since the last
Okay.
items we brought up.
So let's go to comments. What do you have to say about comments? Because I have no questions.
Tom?
We need a more complete landscape plan. We need the landscape architect to follow through and identify which species are where. We'd like you to bring us a more complete landscape plan, please, that identifies what species are going where, and not just a list.
I think.
We've got a preliminary level on layout. Problem, but sorry, I muted myself when I thought I turned it on. I don't. At a preliminary level, I don't think that the layout is a problem, but I think there needs to be some more detail brought to it. And a lot of these plans, I think, are acceptable. Some of them are like the just seems a little like not put together at a complete level at this moment. And then the other thing with the meadow of wildflowers in the front, I don't have a problem with that, but I would encourage the landscape architect or whoever is the designer to incorporate some plants that don't rely on like the seasonal character of what they are to bring the landscape quality to
what is the entry of your home, because I mean, you could mix in some nice grasses and stuff that'll look good all year round and will complement a meadow and your choice of wildflowers, but don't rely on like stuff that's seeded. So I just recommend something that has a little more backbone to it for that area.
So the client is here, the architect is here for design approval, so we can give that a motion. Apparently the landscape needs a little more development, so I don't know how you guys want to draft the motion. Do you want to give them design approval? If so, you want to word it in a way that, speaks about, addresses your questions about landscape.
Sure. Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I might offer that when we decide to give a project design approval, it means we bought off on the basic concept of what the applicant's proposing, and that if we're comfortable with that basic concept, then we can always request specific comments for final to be addressed if the general approach and concept is okay. If it's not, then you may be reluctant to give it project design approval.
Thank you. Well said. So would you like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion.
Okay.
Okay, the board would like to give this project design approval to return to consent for final with the comments that we'd like a little more detail in the landscape plan, that the basic layout as far as sizes of plant materials, it's fine, but to rely on something other than seasonal wildflowers underneath the arbutus for a major landscape feature. And do we need MPO?
Yes, MPO, hillside, and slope lot findings.
Okay. We find that this project has consistency in appearance, is compatible with the existing neighborhood, is using quality architecture and materials, following good neighbor guidelines, is not interrupting any public views, and that it, as far as hillside district and slope lot findings, that the natural topography is not being altered in any significant way, and neither are there any difficulties related to grading interrupting the topography.
That's your motion?
That is my motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any comments?
Mr. Chair, I would propose some additional wording to the motion, that the board did review the issues of the building height, but that it determined that the building height does not exceed 18 feet and is within 6 inches of the City of Santa Barbara's zoning determination that single-story homes are defined as 17 feet 6 inches, so that the proposed project height is not overly burdensome to the site and or the adjacent properties.
Thank you. Can you add that language to the motion?
So you accept that?
I do. I accept that.
All right. All right.
Second?
Do I have a second? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, board members.
Are you coming back indefinitely or 2 weeks?
I will.
Consent.
You're just going to consent. Yeah.
Indefinitely. I'll make a submittal. All right. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you.
Uh-oh. Does it have water?
Okay. We only have 2 more.
Yes, 2 more.
435 East Valerio. Hello. Hey, how are you?
Good. You?
Good.
Thank you, Brett.
All right. Bye.
Okay, so your this project's coming here for design approval and final approval. The proposal to remodel an existing covered front entry of an existing 2,530 square foot single unit residence with a detached 460 square foot two-car garage. Project also includes cantilever trellises and associated landscape and hardscape improvements. Project design and final approval is requested. Project requires neighborhood preservation findings. Project was last reviewed on January 6th, 2020. Do we have minutes, Lisa?
We do. Okay.
Turn on you.
Okay. Comments from the previous board meeting are as follows. Number one, consider moving the air conditioning condenser unit to another location. 2, reconsider the design of the fireplace in terms of the stone pattern. 3, provide an alternative solution to the glass railing. 4, the landscaping is appreciated. And 5, the board reviewed the front porch portico cover and trellis, and they are acceptable.
Okay.
So,
thank you. Like to go over how you address these items? Sure.
So
And
my,
introduce yourself,
yes,
too.
my name is Serena McClintock from Harrison Design.
Anthony Grumbine with Harrison Design.
So,
and our landscape person is couldn't make it for this meeting, so but we think it'll be okay.
Okay.
we're also joined by the homeowner here, Peter By. So to address comment number 1 regarding the air conditioning units, these are previously installed units that we're just asking to be incorporated within this review. We did consider other locations for the air conditioning units. Unfortunately, our kind of preferred locations are already occupied by utility panels here and on this obviously somewhat limited property with the setbacks.
Do you want to talk about the wall now or later?
Yeah, so we did appreciate the board's comments regarding an additional wooden fence to help alleviate some of the sound and a gate here. And we thought that was a really good idea, so we did incorporate that as well. And I'll show you the planting plan, which shows not only the proposed fence, but also proposed hedging and things to be obscuring sound and visual noise from the public view. The next comment that the board has was in regard to the proposed fireplace that's located here in the rear of the property. And the comment the board has was in regard to its stone design, so I'm going to bring you to the elevation, which is just the previous sheet. We did restudy this design. We actually brought the height down by 6 inches, reducing the size and the scale kind of appropriate to the space. We studied the stone patterning and like the idea of doing a 5-point stone pattern seen similarly throughout the neighborhood. Important to us that it shows that it is kind of load bearing or could be at these openings, so we considered that as well. And we liked the board's comments also to add stone patterning at the back of the fireplace. We think that's a good idea. The last comment was in regard to design of this existing or this proposed guardrail. We like the board's comments to restudy that, and so we considered a number of designs, including wood and wrought iron. We thought it was a good idea that we perhaps do some sort of wrought iron design that speaks to the proposed guardrail at the front of the property that you guys liked. And we also were inspired by, this is a picture of the dining room with this beautiful old window and its lozenges facing this area. You can see the existing guardrail here. And so we thought it was a good idea to pick up some of that kind of cross geometry and then in a way that's appropriate for a guardrail here. So it would be wrought iron and then with glass just implemented to suit code. Your last comments in regard to the planting, that they were appreciated, and the design of the trellises in the front entry, which you guys appreciated and approved. So we appreciate that as well. Great. What questions can we answer for you?
Okay. Erica, do we have any emails or public comment?
No, Mr. Chair.
Anyone in the audience wishing to speak? I don't see anyone, so we can bring it back to the board. Board have any questions?
We did bring this.
Yes, thank you for noticing that. It's a comment I forgot to make. Exactly right. We left space at the bottom to eliminate any debris. That was a great idea.
Where's the minutes? Anyone else have questions?
Here.
Lisa? Fred?
No question.
Okay, if no one has questions, any comments? Hearing no comments, we'd like to forward it to making a motion if you'd like. Yes, Fred.
I'll make a comment before we go to a motion.
Okay.
I will not be supporting project. The glass solution is still not where it needs to be. So
Okay,
I'm
do you
not
want
gonna
to
support it?
comment further about it?
No, I think it's unfortunate. So I think it's inappropriate and not part of the language of the architecture of the house.
Okay. Sure.
This steel iron detail is, you said it is reflective of the windows that are in the house?
Yeah, we use the X pattern geometry from the lozenge of those windows, that little sort of diamond-shaped lozenge, as as the inspiration for creating these panels, basically.
We studied other designs, including using like a lozenge shape, and all of a sudden it read very overworked and like a window construction and not appropriate to a guardrail.
Could they look even more like that rather than just crosses?
Yeah.
If you're going to go to the expense of doing this,
It doesn't imitate that geometry.
you could do a little bit more, then it would imitate what's in the windows here, and then it would really look like it belongs. And I don't mind the glass, because the glass is, it's vertical. You don't see it from the street because it's right straight down.
Uh-oh. You're totally unconnected.
I didn't get anything I said. You're looking right straight down the line, and I won't say one way or the other. Glass doesn't bother me.
So in answer to that, we drew it a number of different ways. We drew it as a lozenge with the pickets coming up, but then as soon as you opened it a certain distance and then got the glass as your way of solving the code question, it started looking sort of like really big, complex panes. It started getting very fussy. So at a certain point, it seemed like it needed enough space to warrant glass, or really tight, and when we got it really tight, it seemed too fussy and too overworked. So we looked at it in a number of different ways, and it seemed like this was sort of a decent compromise that looks like almost something that you would find as an X pattern in something of an earlier generation where you didn't mind children falling to their death. So it seemed like that was sort of where it.
Is this what's there now?
Yes. So right
Picture
now.
of what's there now.
What's that?
That's a picture of what the
Yes,
railing looks like
that's right.
now.
That's real life. And it looks a lot better than it does in real life, because that's from a photo from the real estate.
I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't.
So right now that, it looks better than in real life. In real life, it's actually a
that kind
pretty
of
clunky and
plastic composite.
and it's actually the railing itself is a manufactured screwed together thing that's.
You're looking through that at a hedge.
That's right. So the idea was for this to go away as much as possible, and not to see railing, just to really read it as hedge. So that was the original reason why the owner wanted to have just a glass railing. They were just trying to have it feel like an extra 3 feet of space before you hit the hedge, because it's actually a pretty tight distance back there. So there's not a lot of space between the house and the hedge, and in between that is 3 or 4 feet off of that is the railing. So
How do you envision the mullion, the shape of the mullion?
So we're thinking of it as sort of a window configuration where you have sort of like a T, and like a putty look, like a steel rail window or single pane window. So that's where we were going to go with it. It would basically look like a steel frame.
Well, I guess
I look at it, and we take volunteer cleaners too.
I understand Fred's concern. I guess my feeling is the fact that it's in the back. It's really not a high visible thing. And I don't have a problem with it myself. I think it's I don't have a problem with it. I think that this is your approach, kind of based on what the client is requesting and kind of what we're requesting. So that's kind of where I'm left with it. So, if there's any other comments, move to make a motion. If someone would like, now they're here to here for project design and final approval. So if someone. You can either give them project design, come back for comments, or give them PDA.
I could make that motion to give this project design approval and final approval.
Okay.
I agree with my client Brian here that Chair Miller, that because it's in the backyard and it's it's really not going to be visible. I find the railing acceptable for the deck. I like what you did with the fireplace. I think the stonework is nice, and including it on the back, it looks put together. I think that you have been consistent with the neighborhood and your entryway. That we already gave this approval, though, right? The entryway? No? Okay, so that needs all of PDA. Okay. All right, so the entryway and the covered walkway and the landscaping is consistent with the neighborhood in its in appearance and compatibility. You're using quality architecture and materials. The landscape is acceptable, and you've followed good neighbor guidelines. That's it. That's my motion.
Quick comment.
Yes.
I know it's been always critical to define the neighborhood, and I notice we're not been doing that. Have we dropped the ball on that in defining the neighborhood?
Isn't this the Upper East Side? But I don't know if we have a little map here. Okay, so I'd like to define the neighborhood as this is the Upper East Side. The streets Arriaga, Valerio, Laguna, and Olive Street, wrapping all the way around to Grand Avenue and all the way over to East Mitchell-Terrena.
Right, thank you.
Okay. That's my motion.
Do I have a second of the motion? For the motion? Any further comments? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstains?
Opposed?
Unopposed? Hey, thank you.
Thank you very much.
574 Ricardo Avenue. Still here. I know it's getting cold. This is coming for project design approval. The proposal for an interior remodel of an existing single-unit residence with 499 square feet of additions on the first floor and 610 square feet on additions on the second floor. The attached 499 square foot two-car garage is to remain. The project also includes a new 280 square foot deck. Project will address violations in Zoning Information Report ZIR 2018-00244. The proposed total of 2,433 square feet of development on a 7,400 square foot lot in the Hillside Design District is 94% of the maximum allowable floor to lot area ratio. Project design approval is requested. Project neighborhood preservation, hillside design, and slope lot findings are required. Project was last reviewed on June 10th, 2019. Lisa, do we have minutes?
We do. Following minutes are from the previous session to restudy the design of the project and its compatibility with the neighborhood, provide a full landscape plan. 3, provide site plans. 4, provide site sections that show the neighbors' homes, proposed windows, the neighbors' windows in relation to the project so that privacy concerns can be addressed. The site section should extend across Ricardo Avenue and down to the lower property on Dolores Avenue. 5, provide a materials board. 6, find out if power lines can be varied. Okay. Board makes the finding that the MPO ordinance criteria have not been met with the following comments. The project as proposed is not compatible with the neighborhood, doesn't meet good neighbor guidelines, size, bulk, and scale are not acceptable, and the quality of architectural materials is not acceptable. Number 8, an FAR closer to 85% guideline is preferred. 9, provide an accurate streetscape of the project in relationship to the house to the south and the 2 houses to the north. The streetscape should be associated with a proper survey. 10, provide a complete roof plan showing the location of skylights. And 11, include pitched roofs that are reminiscent of the rest of the neighborhood as a part of the roof configuration in order for the project to be compatible with the neighborhood.
Thank you. So if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us how you address those comments?
Sure. My name is Pan Su, and I'm the architect for this project. I think it's needless to say you guys didn't like the last design. So, we came back and redesigned the project pretty much the whole way, so dramatically redesigned it. The last proposal, we were at, I believe, 94% FAR.
Yeah, I see this year at 88.
We are now at 88% FAR on the project. We have reduced the size and bulk and scale of the home quite a bit, and it went from a contemporary design with flat roofs now with pitch roofs throughout the project.
Could you bring us a copy of the previous? Go ahead, continue, I'm sorry.
Is this a previous?
Sorry, go on.
Okay. The project is essentially we're demoing all the interior walls of the house and rearranging the bedrooms. It's an existing 4-bedroom home, and we are proposing to do the same with 3 bedrooms down below and an additional master suite upstairs. So the second floor will be brand new. The existing 2-car garage is existing non-conforming, and it will remain where it was. We are proposing for the ground floor a minimum addition in the back and an additional bedroom back here and a little bump out for this 3rd bedroom in the back.
Okay.
This is the conceptual landscape plan. The exterior of the home is basically within the same existing footprint that is there now. So the driveway will maintain where it was with the garage, and then we're proposing a street sidewalk approach with a paved area and landscaping near this mature tree that's existing by the parkway. This is a demo plan that was submitted to the city showing what walls we're keeping. Now, we are proposing to extend the existing play height on the ground floor from 8 feet to 9 feet. And then the addition, the master suite on the second floor also would have 9 feet. The second floor play height The governing play height is 8 feet, but it does, because of the variation in the roofs, some of the area basically went up in 9 feet play height. So this is the first floor plan. The second floor, this area is the governing play height at 8 feet, and then because of the pitches undulate along the length of the structure, it's around 9 feet over here. And that's basically the configuration of the new roof. The great room down below will also have a 9-foot play height along the street, but it's pitched toward the back with a 12-foot play height for the views, to take advantage of the views for the site in the back. I think the railing, we have a deck on the second floor, and the railing are now changed from the original glass guardrail to now it's stainless steel wire guardrails. And the way we address the privacy issue, this is the street elevation, because our lot actually dropped significantly from the adjacent lot. The 2-story actually evens out pretty much with the adjacent homes. Everybody, this is the owner's friend. The owner couldn't be here today, but she is her representative.
Sorry.
What is your name, please?
We.
Wait, you will not be televised on the record.
We need a.
So this is a brief, a side section across the street and through the lot. Now, the way I address the concern for the neighbor immediately next door with the privacy issue, our initial proposal. I show the windows on the side plan. There it is. This is the neighbor's, the footprint of the neighbor's home, and the 3 windows that she had on the side of her home is right here. So we made an effort. The last proposal we did actually had a much wider footprint on the second floor and a huge deck that comes all the way out. We have cut that all the way back now, and now this deck on the second floor actually wraps around to the other side of the proposal. And all the elevation, the windows on this elevation are up high. There is no windows that actually looked out. There's only one window here that are approximately 3 feet high, but the rest of these are all master bathroom windows, and they're all up high, facing the neighbors. So those are these windows here. So I minimize all the exposure in terms of privacy with the adjacent neighbor next door, and wrap the deck and push the deck around to the other side of the structure. So there isn't any potential way where she could, potentially look into their yard and cause a privacy issue here. That's it.
All right, thank you. Did we get any comments, emails?
No, Mr. Chair.
Seeing no one in the audience, I'll bring it back to the board. Does the board have questions? Fred, do you have questions?
Yeah, I've got some clarification questions. Let's see, maybe it's easier to come over. let's see, first, well, right here, is this intended to be a round element? Or
Yes.
or it doesn't have breaks in the stucco?
No, it's intended to be a round element.
So it's a round element, okay. And so one of the things that I looked at that's confusing is I looked at your roof plan, and then I looked at your elevations right here. There appears to be this is going to be a conflict right there, where this roof hits that wall, and here, and so that appears to be a little awkward. And I'm just wondering if you ought to drop this roof line, that point down to here, which on the front of the house would drop this down to here, which I think proportionally might look better because you've got a lot of top here.
Yes, okay.
Either that or you introduce a window element up here that would let light into that large open space because you've got kind of this nice entryway on the inside. And then on the front here, I'm assuming that's the current opening of the window that's there now?
That's correct.
But it has a Cinderella crosshatch in it.
That's correct.
That's going to get taken out, and that's a solid window. I don't know from the modification requirement, because you're trying to leave this just as it is, whether you could divide this window up a little bit. That it just looks a little awkward, and given the fact that it's a garage window.
Okay.
And then the other thing is, I think that this looks awkward, the relationship from the top of these windows to there. And I don't know that it would affect your ceiling volume or your ability to get light into the master bedroom if you drop this a foot down into here. I think that would make this work better. And then the final
You're going into comments.
comment, but the final question is, I'm looking at the windows here above the sinks, and I'm just wondering if that's really going to work, given that most people need to have mirrors in front of their vanities and their sinks, and those windows are going to be down into a 6 foot person's face. So that may be something you need to resolve.
Okay. Thank you.
Jan, do you have questions? Joe?
I'll save mine for comments. I have lots of comments.
Okay.
Rather than questions.
Please.
I have one question on A3. What is that? Is it a blob, or is that meant to be?
No, that's meant to be a bush under the tree.
Okay, I'll save for comment.
Robert, do you have any questions? No. Okay. I don't think I have any questions. I think Fred pretty much addressed my. So I'm going to go to comments. Who has comments?
I'll start off. I think the reason I'm looking at your previous set and comparing it with what you've changed, I think floor plans didn't bother us that much. I think your elevations is what really, we run into this a lot with applicants that come in. This is the old set.
Yeah.
They show us some elevations, and they're, quote again, builder's elevations, and they're not architectural elevations. They don't tell us what's happening. They don't show us. They don't show us the life of it. Yeah. And you have, granted, you have done a little bit to your new elevations, but I think Fred kind of went to detail about different questions he had on different places. I have an overall comment that I think it doesn't, the roof line of the house doesn't fit the neighborhood. It doesn't fit the neighborhood because you have too many different roofs on the house. Instead, you have some gables, you have some, I'm surprised I haven't seen any flat ones, but this top street elevation, you have house, and the house on the corner, which we have looked at years ago, right on the end of Ricardo, and did a lot of, they did a lot of changes to that house. But your house, I mean, just the looks of it, you have too many different roof lines, and it looks like they're just add-ons. They're not part of the house. They're not designed within the house. They just look like, well, one year I put this roof on here, and then I came along 3 years later and put this roof on here. And the windows are all, as Fred's pointed out, windows don't match, so they also look like they've been added at different times in the century. And yeah, I'm a little skeptical of the elevations of it. And it might look good if those elevations were more alive and showed us what the size, bulk, and scale looked at, but they don't. So it's a yeah, I'll stop right there.
Am I allowed to comment? Oh, okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say that because our last review was pretty bad, that you will get more render elevations later on. But at this point, I just want to make sure we're in the right direction to even go into all that. Okay. That's why these are here right now. But yeah, as we go along, we will provide more rendered elevations.
Okay.
Make a comment?
Go ahead.
So,
Yes, Jan, please.
Can I ask a quick question about
looking, as I look at
Hold your
these,
own.
I was looking at these different roof lines here, and I was hearing what you're saying, and I just, like, if that portion wasn't sticking up like that, that would solve a lot, it seems like. Because that one piece that's sticking up there just really.
What are you covering something up?
Yeah, like that.
Well, that's what you're doing is taking a roof off.
Right.
It doesn't belong there.
Right. So that's my comment.
Okay. All right, Lisa?
I believe that our checklist asks that you bring a full landscape plan. And I know you brought that's a conceptual, probably because you didn't, as you said, didn't want to get too far along with it. But yeah, I would look forward to seeing a fleshed out landscape plan. And just in case, there's a big wave of people planting succulents in the parkway, and that's really all fine and good, but people are planting some really sharp, pointy things that are becoming a public health hazard. So if that's anything, no sharp points. In case that's
I will agree.
Dangerous.
Okay, sorry, it's my personal.
That and plants that draws bees.
We'll plant all native.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on.
And that won't need much watering.
Steve? Robert? Oh, where's Steve?
I don't have any comment. I mean, I guess, yeah, a more detailed landscape plan would be helpful. And I agree with the comment about simplifying the roof lines. I think that would be a big improvement. And there's something about the second story element that reads from the street just seems kind of massive from the front view of it. So I don't know if there's some kind of element that you could bring in there that would kind of break down the scale of how that is read, but feels like it wants to be brought down a little bit. So that's my comment as far as the architecture.
The places where you've raised the plate heights, the different, the kitchen and the living room and the different places where you raise the plate heights, they don't match the roof of the lower plate heights. I don't know how to describe what I'm trying to say, but Fred, you help me a little bit there.
Well, I think, let me come over there.
especially in the front of the house.
I think simplifying the roof shapes, doing that will go a long ways to solving that problem. But I think you have an opportunity right here to really create a much more interesting entryway, getting this thing to drop down. And I was just looking at the fact that maybe you should bring that element across so that you have a covered doorway. Because in inclement weather, typically what happens, you're there trying to do your umbrella and take off your rain boots, and there's no protection. So by providing an element that comes across here really helps set this apart, and at some point you're probably going to want a light fixture in here to light the front door, or whatever, or lights on both sides, or however you want to do it. And so I think by doing that, simplifying that shape, will go a long ways to helping that elevation. And I think then as you go around the house, by eliminating that, and because you still get your views out of these big windows here, by eliminating that, you've taken that down and you've gotten this roof to match up, and then just getting this thing resolved to come down like that. Then it starts to come together, and maybe what you do on, where is this side? That's this side over here. So you have these big windows here. You've given that nice shade here, and you've got that little element here. Maybe that's an opportunity for you not to do this here. Do a smaller window here, just like that maybe, and let that resolve itself in that way. And then that way all your doors, these nice big sliding doors that are going to open out to the outside really I think work a lot better. But I think that simplifying your roof shapes are going to make the whole composition come together. I think in general my view is you're in the right approach, you're just not quite there yet.
Okay. Thank you. Did that answer what you wanted to say? Okay. I'll just piggyback what Fred said. I agree with, simplify.
Okay.
So let's see. Their project design approval is requested. They can either project design approval, or they can come back if you feel they need to come back for more comments. Who would like to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
That we request the applicant to return to the full board for consideration of project design approval on that return. That the applicant study simplifying the roof shapes, particularly at the second floor level, and particularly over the main entry element at the front door. That the applicant designer consider reshaping the roof over in the master bedroom at the second floor. That the applicant review the existing window opening at the garage to make it less obtrusive, given that it is a garage window and not an occupied space. That the applicant review with the client the need for windows over the vanity sink area at the master bathroom, and consider alternative locations if windows are necessary. That the applicant return with a proposed color palette, including roofing finish material. Photograph is sufficient. That the applicant also return with initial concepts of a more defined landscape plan, both for the property and the adjacent public parkway. And that the applicant also return, when the applicant returns, have a concept review of exterior lighting as it relates to the landscape plan and to any lighting that has to be applied to the building surfaces.
Is that your motion?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, okay, who wins it?
Lisa was louder.
Yep.
The chair gets to decide.
Okay, Lisa, you've seconded. Okay, all those in favor say, oh, wait a minute, did you have something you wanted to?
Yeah, talking about the roof line, you know, at the corner, I live on El Camino de la Luz, you know, by the lighthouse. Well, kind of not next to it, but very close to, you know, that footbridge. Right by our street and Oliver, at that corner, there's this like big modern 2-story house that has a roof line that's like really exaggerated. So instead of going this way, it goes that way.
We know about that.
Yeah.
We've had a considerable amount of backlash from the community after this board approved that house. We've had
Yeah, well, I was just thinking, talking about matching the neighborhood.
Numerous complaints, and that house is that's a lesson learned.
Well, I shouldn't, I was trying to.
Yeah.
No, we're in a
Full of
motion. We're in a
emotion,
motion.
so we have to complete
All
the
those
motion.
Yeah, every time I pass that house, I just think about, you know, like it doesn't really match
Doesn't match anything.
the neighborhood. So I mean, this is like really compared to that. This is like really.
I'll make a, okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carried. What I wanted to say to that is, we're not doing it perfectly, but one of the things we're trying to avoid is, well, they did it, so why can't we do it? You know, it's sort of like, it's not a perfect science, but yeah, what Fred said, we get criticized for approving certain designs, and that shouldn't have been approved the way it was designed. But this is going to be beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hope so.
I agree. Yeah.
Do you need to keep any of these or?
Okay.
Okay. This one is not marked up, so it probably won't take that
Any
one.
further business?
This one's not marked up.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to conclude the Single Family Design Board for February 3rd, 2020. Thank you.
Thank you.